All right, everybody. We're here. All right. We're here. We're ready to start. Slightly late. I was scheduling things for 30 minutes earlier, and obviously we're not able to make that time. Testing, testing. I think we're good. But then I rescheduled it for 7:45 EST, and that worked out. So we're good to go. Yeah, that was the initial schedule. All right, guys. Today we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna figure out the situation with Bonney. We're just gonna solve it. We're gonna be the first ones to figure it out. Everyone will be very, very impressed. And yeah, we'll be the ones to do it. Also, who's excited about how packed the shelves are? Who sees the shelves? Who sees how packed the shelves are? Yeah, the shelves are on their way to being filled. But right now we've got at least one significant item up there. More to come. Here's the thing. All right. I don't know if I explained this last stream, but I have a bookshelf out there in the living room area, and my thought is I can take stuff from that bookshelf and put it over here. But then that bookshelf out there will look very sparse. So I need to be able to balance the two things. Because otherwise when people come in and then they see my bookshelf out there and it looks a little sparse, then they'll be like, oh, are you illiterate? That'll be their first thought. Right? They'll just be like, "Hey, the decor in this living room is somewhat lacking." Right? So bottom line is, I would rather these shelves look barren than the outside shelves look barren. So ultimately, I got to figure out a good way to make this stuff look better. So I might have to do some redistributing before. I'll try and make it look better by next Thursday's stream. The shelves look weirdly fake. Yeah, because there's nothing on them. Cheers says, is the Bonney is one of Big Mom's kids theory dead? I didn't even... Oh, no. I do remember that being a theory, but that was ages ago. And I remember that was maybe around the same time that... No, it wasn't ages ago. That's not true. It wasn't ages ago. But I think it definitely died the moment that we heard that Kuma is her father figure, you know? Her dad or father figure, whatever. Right? Wade Turner says, get a fake plant. I think I've ordered one. I think I've got one. There'll be stuff. Beyond that, we've got... Oh, you actually just reminded me of, before I forget this. Who remembers one of the most popular fan theories that turned out to be incorrect? And this was the saddest shit. The theory around Katakuri being Kaido and Big Mom's son. The theory was that Kaido, Oven, and Daifuku, those triplets, were all kids from Kaido and Big Mom. This was before we really got deep into Wano and understood Kaido and Big Mom's dynamic, and that they would never make sense having kids together. But that was quite the popular fan theory for a bit, and it was one of low-key my favorite ones, just because, I don't know, Katakuri is such a cool character, so for him to be, it would feel fitting for him to have been the kid of, you know, Kaido and Big Mom, right? At the end of the day, though, you know, like Yamato, obviously, assuming that Yamato is actually Kaido's kid, right, and not some adoption situation. I do hope we find out. For as much as I dislike Yamato's character, I do hope we find out a little bit about her past or something like that, right? Her origin, whatever. So as much as you know, the Katakuri being Kaido and Big Mom's kid theory kind of went away. I mean, obviously went away. It was debunked. It does still seem like, at first I was just like, it just makes sense. Katakuri's so strong. He's got to be Kaido's kid. Yamato, I think most people would agree that Yamato is likely stronger than Katakuri. I think most people would agree to that. Look, I love Katakuri as much as the next person, and I hate Yamato more than the average person, but just got to call it like you see it. I think Yamato is probably Yamato should be stronger than Katakuri, I think, no question, right? I could see some arguments, but I think it's Yamato. So with that in mind, you can kind of go through pretty much every strong character from the old generation. Their kid has also been phenomenally strong, right? Roger had Ace, Kaido, Yamato, Big Mom. She had a bunch of kids. I think Katakuri's the number one that we look at. It looks like if you're the kid of like one of these legendary type figures, your ceiling is at least first mate level, right? Or floor, sorry, is at least first mate level. Is there anyone else I'm missing? An important kid? We don't know Rox's kid. Whitebeard, as far as we know, didn't have one. Dragon, obviously. You know. Okay. Let me catch these real quick. Ali H, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 12 months. Yo, Morj, will we get a Wano analysis by 2026? Also, keep up whatever you're doing. Fun fact for anybody who is interested. The Pirate King tier podcast just came out. And you know the title of this latest Pirate King tier podcast? Who here is a Pirate King tier member who's able to get it? Who's able to get that podcast? The title of that podcast was, why is the Wano analysis not out yet? I usually title it based on like the most prominent questions that come up over the course of the podcast. So it's not like the entire podcast is about that. In reality, I answer every person who submitted their questions. So it's like an hour of me answering questions, actually a little over an hour. But the one I spent the most time on, like 7-8 minutes on, was talking about the Wano analysis. So if you're interested in an update on that, it's in the Pirate King tier. No, like the answer is a lengthy one, which is why usually I don't devote a bunch of time on stream to talking about it. But that's why the Pirate King tier podcast, if you would like to hear about the situation there, or if somebody who got the Pirate King tier podcast and wants to fill the good people in chat in, feel free to let them know below. Fading Phase, thanks for the 5. Thanks for the great content, Morj. If Bonney ends up being a kid, is there any way it won't be creepy with the things done to her and portrayed? Here is what I predict will happen. I'm calling a prediction right now, all right? Note it, document it, clip it, whatever you want to do. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 100. All right, this is my prediction for the One Piece community. All right? So here's the timeline of how things happen. All right? When the theory first started coming about that, hey, maybe Bonnie's a kid, right? Everybody was flipping out and people were just like it was a minority voice at that point in time, right? Like the very loud vocal minority being like, hey, Bonney might be a kid, and majority of people were like, no, this is stupid, that's so weird, that's so creepy, Oda would never do that, right? People are posting panels of like Bonney and those sexual shots and stuff, and then everyone's just like, no, Bonnie's not a kid, yada 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 yada, right? I remember I did a poll maybe like 2-3 months back, maybe even earlier, if like, hey, possibilities coming up that Bonney might be a kid, and like 80% were like, no, that's not a possibility, all right? Because, reason being, everyone was like, no, that'd be too weird, that'd be too wrong, Oda would never do that, right? He's not like the Rurouni Kenshin author, mangaka, even though Oda was his apprentice or whatever, right? So, that was what public opinion was. Now it's getting closer to, okay, there's a solid chance that Bonney might actually be biologically a kid, right? My prediction is, if Bonney ends up being a kid, is there any way it won't be creepy, yada yada? My prediction is, if Bonney does in fact turn out to be a biological child, the vast majority of the One Piece community will take back anything they said about how there's no way Bonnie's a kid and how creepy and weird that would be, right? I think the vast majority of people will take that back and do a bunch of mental gymnastics to basically shut down any vocal faction or like, I guess normal people will basically do a lot of mental gymnastics to shut down the normal people who are basically saying, yeah, this would be really, really weird. I think we will see a gigantic pushback with people being like, no, Bonney being a kid is not weird. None of those shots are actually sexual shots. You're the one being weird if you're trying to sexualize her, not Oda. That's just my prediction. I think that is what you can clip this, save this for the future. But if Bonney turns out to be a biological kid, I believe that will be the overwhelming reaction of the one. I think first there'll be a lot of people getting upset, and then there'll be the counter wave of people pushing back. Probably the majority of One Piece readers will push back and be like, you know what? No, this isn't weird. This is normal. This is some okay shit, all right? All these sexual shots of Bonney and stuff, you're the one being weird if you're thinking that they're sexual shots, because they're not, even though they obviously are. So that's my prediction. I think that's I've seen the cover-up happen in the One Piece community before. Obviously not with with topics like this, but we just know the way shit goes, right? So rest assured, it will be glossed over. It will be forgotten about, most likely. And people will move on. That's just the way it is. That's just the way it'll be. I think my last thought is I think that it will be maybe controversial for a little stretch of time, and then people will basically just shove down any sort of actual commentary about the situation, and we move on. And then, yeah, that's just it. Nerve AMV Maker, thanks for the 5. It's clear Bonney is a kid. Fuck. Vegapunk wouldn't be yelling she's just a kid every other panel if she was actually Ginny. We all just have to take the L. I'm not going to say it's clear that she's a kid. Yusuf says it's def not okay. It's Oda's problem. I know it's not okay. I'm just saying the way that it's going to be. You know? Like, because I've already seen the transition happen from, like, initially it was like an 80-20. Like, most people are like, no, she's obviously not a kid. There's no way she's a kid. Nobody talk about Oda like that. She's not a kid. That was like the majority. Now we're getting closer and closer to the possibility of her actually being a child. And I've already seen like little bits on Twitter and stuff of people being like, there's nothing weird about like Bonnie stuff. Like Oda does shirtless shots of like Oda does shirtless shots of like Zoro and the male characters and stuff all the time. So what's the difference if like Bonnie had a shirtless shot, or like Bonnie has a bunch of ass shots and stuff like that, or if Bonnie's in like spandex, right? I've already seen, you can already see the wave coming. You can already see the defense train coming. It's just like, you know, the defense train, like ultimately it's just a numbers game. If the majority of people want this controversy to go away and be shoved down, it just will be, because that's just what the majority of people will say. So, you know, you can already see it coming. So ultimately, if you're worried, like, will Oda be slandered as a I don't know, like another Rurouni Kenshin type mangaka, I just don't think that'll be the case. And yeah, it's just the way it is. So rest assured, there's nothing to worry about. Breezy2x says, how many characters will be stronger than Roger? End of story. Ooh, that's a juicy question. First, let me just quickly say, Pop, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 3 months, man. I appreciate that. How many characters will be stronger than Roger? End of story. Luffy, obviously. I think Emu. Are we talking about like modern day or just like in general? Because I think Emu, obviously. Luffy, obviously. I think if we're talking in general, then throw in Joy Boy. I think with someone like Samurai Ryuma, we'll probably never know, but there's enough Zoro fanboys that by the end of the story they would argue that Roger would lose to Ryuma or whatever. So maybe throw in Ryuma in there. I'd say at least Luffy, Emu, Joy Boy. I think Blackbeard's a maybe, but I kind of want to say no. I don't feel like any of the Gorosei would be stronger than Roger. But you never know. Like, if Saturn's one of the weaker Gorosei, and a lot of people already scale Saturn to Yonko level or something, you never know. I would say the only ones I would say confidently would be Luffy, Emu, Joy Boy. But I could easily see there being, like, a ton of arguments for lots of other characters. Like, I'm sure people will have their arguments for Ryuma. Some people have their arguments for Blackbeard. Depending on the Gorosei, some people might have their arguments for the Gorosei. I've already seen some people say, like, hey, maybe modern day Shanks is stronger than Roger. I've seen people fucking saying that Mihawk might be stronger than Roger. So you never know what people will argue because we just have so little information about that past era. You know? Hurrying Lyrics, thanks for gifting 10 memberships. I always appreciate this. Holy shit, thank you so much. And some people have to say thank you as well. Dima's Mob, say thank you. Plasticola, say thank you. 8Baller10, say thank you. Derek Miles, say thanks. Quijano Reeves, say thanks. Fading Phase, say thank you. Class Ace, Bad Username, and Didi and Juan Martinez, say thank you. Thank you for coming through, Hurrying Lyrics. I appreciate that. Yeah, let's get the stream likes up to 200 real quick. Black Cat says, hi Morj, what are your thoughts on Bonney showing up at Morijo as Connie, Widow Queen of Sorbet? So this was somewhat, oh, and you say, saludos desde Uruguay. Oh, that's so cool. I always find it really cool when people, this is obviously the problem with Americans, etc., but I tend to assume that most commenters are from America. It's just the natural assumption, because America's a very, like, we're very America-centric country. It's just ingrained in your head that, like, we're the center of the world, and that's just kind of just, I don't know. But I always find it cool when there's people who watch my videos from countries that I really wouldn't expect. So That's nice to see. Thanks. Um, what was I saying? My thoughts on Bonney showing up. So it makes a lot more sense now how Bonney showed up as the queen of Sorbet Kingdom, because the kingdom was split in half. The kingdom was split in half. Um, so we can assume that she's like the actual queen, like, or not the actual queen. Not that either half of Sorbet Kingdom is any more legitimate than the other, but I think it makes a lot more sense in that category. I mean, in that sense. So I don't know if Connie's important, but it is weird that her name is Connie. Then we got Ginny and then Bonney, so maybe it is important? Yeah, I was probably being stupid a second ago. Connie, Ginny, Bonney, it probably is important. I don't know. Yokai Gota does make a good point, because Yokai Gota does say, correctly, Morj is projecting because of his past disagreements with the community during Wano with the raid. I think most people will find it weird. So I will say this, which is that it is frustrating for me in general, where I see lots of things that people dislike in One Piece, and then later on they're just like, you know what, it's not a big deal. Like, so many people are like, this Whole Cake Island cliffhanger, this is so bizarre. What, like, so many people criticize the way that Whole Cake Island ended. It's like, this is so weird, all that effort, then Jinbei's just being left behind, yada yada yada. I don't know if people really remember like how frustrated people were at like the lack of sense of consequences at the end of Whole Cake Island, for, you know, everybody just being able to come back, stop the final assault on the Straw Hats, let the Straw Hats get away. A lot of people had a lot of issues with that at that time. I don't know if people remember. And then what do we find out later on? Okay, so the Sun Pirates, they all just kind of got away. Jinbei kind of just got away. Germa 66 was captured, but then they also got away with nothing happening, basically, in a cover story. So basically the entire gigantic cliffhanger at Whole Cake Island, which was extremely criticized at the time, and a lot of people were yelling, like, there's got to be consequences for this. This has got to be, like, something has to come of this. Otherwise, this whole arc was a joke. Big Mom is a joke, etc. I don't subscribe to that, by the way. I think Whole Cake Island is a really good arc, but I understand people's complaints about that. But all of that happened, and then down the line, Jinbei just shows up, Sun Pirates just show up, Germa 66, that plot point resolved in the cover story. Nobody cares down the line. This is just a true fact regarding the One Piece community, but not just the One Piece community, in general fandoms, which is like, lots of times, issues that come up over time, they just get smoothed over by the fandom, who just stop caring about it, or basically say it's not a big deal. It's just the way shit is, right? I do agree that it's possible that this would be different with the Bonney situation, because it's not really a storytelling thing. It's like an outside, frowned upon societally type thing. You get what I'm saying? It's not like, oh, this is a weird plot point or something like that. It's like, this is this is some weird shit, basically, that steps outside of the story in terms of like how we view the author as a person. So I would agree that that could be different, but just because of the way I think fandoms in general want to really defend the creators, I would not be surprised if this ultimately is something that gets glossed over, simply because I have already seen people making these comments that, like, Bonnie stuff isn't that weird. It's the readers that are sexualizing her. I've already been seeing those comments. Like, I've seen the defense force already out. And if it's out right now, in the shadows, in a sort of very low-key sense, right? If it does finally come out that Bonnie is a kid, then I could definitely see a strong push that kind of gains some momentum of trying to smooth this over and basically say it's not a big deal. However, we might be very prematurely critiquing Oda as a person here, because I don't want to get into the conversation of like whether, like, how right or wrong. Like, I don't want to get into the conversation of like the implications of Bonnie being a kid. This stream was more so to talk about what are the likely chances of her being a clone, her being Ginny but turned back in some way, her having already been born in the flashback and us not seeing it, or her actually being a kid. I just want to talk about the possibilities. Ramifications, that's something that's a different topic. I don't think it's right to criticize someone just for the possibility of them having done something controversial in a story when it's like, we don't even know that, right? Flip side is, Oda did himself no favors with the way that he answered the Boa Hancock Seraphim question. So if Bonnie also turns out to be a kid, then that plus the Boa Hancock stuff means that Oda is not beating certain allegations. So this would this would be a very damning arc for Oda if that's the case. But I don't think that that's right for us to discuss just yet because it's unfair. It's just like it's like kind of it's not accusing the man of anything, but it's even just like circling. It's like, well, if he is this, then that would like if he's doing this, then that would be make him a really bad person or something. I'm like, I don't think that's fair till we actually get to that point in the story. I feel like let's just focus on trying to figure out the possibilities first, right? Let's do that first. The Connie point was good. I keep forgetting about Connie, and I do think the fact that the name is similar, you know, Connie's an alias for Bonney. I don't know. Dante G says, I hope that if she is, fan service stops with her even as an adult. Keep going with it, even knowing she's a child in disguise would be the creepy thing. I think it wouldn't change anything that already happened, but it would also make it super controversial anytime Oda does anything with Bonney that's mildly fan servicey in the future. Yeah. Great piece, thanks for the 1. Breezy2X, thanks for the 2. Who is the best non-stride character in One Piece? The best non-stride character in One Piece? I mean, I think it's shaping up to be... Best is a weird word, but I think it's shaping up to be maybe the best written non-stride character in One Piece would probably be Kuma, right? There's a good shot of that. I think a lot of the backstory characters also are really, really good in this regard. I would say Trafalgar Law is got a great argument outside of Kuma as well. It depends on the things you value, right? Law, we just spent so much time with him. He's got a compelling story. Many people find him to have... I think there's a lot of people who think he has like their favorite backstory in One Piece. Yeah, he's and like he adds a very different dimension to the story that I think he's an important character to have in One Piece because One Piece has never been it's never featured really cerebral characters in terms of like strategists or masterminds, right? Like the closest we really have is someone like Blackbeard, who's more of a very opportunistic gambler. He's not like an Aizen or something. I'm not saying Law is like that, but it was a very grounding element to have to the story to really frame a lot of the stakes and kind of what the Strats are attempting to do by no longer having them sort of fly by the seat of their pants, but instead insert a sort of really strategic character that can frame, here's the plan, here's the goal that we're trying to get to, here are the steps that we need to take, here's the strategy that we need to involve, here's how we're going to manage basically our time over the course of this. Even throughout the course of Wano, he was integral to all that. So it's cool having a character like him in general. And then also just as a character, the storyline that he had, his revenge arc with Doflamingo, and his past with Corazon. I think overall, Law is probably the most heavily developed and to most people interesting character outside of the Straw Hats. Then there are characters you've got that are just like hype characters to have around, like a Shanks or a Mihawk. There's some great one-off characters like Whitebeard, who was only around for one arc really, but he was really, really well written. Let's not forget Whitebeard and Ace, actually. I don't know if there's a lot of candidates, and time is not the only thing that matters. I personally find like Ace's whole story more compelling and interesting to me than Law's. I would argue even Whitebeard's as well, but Law got a lot more time. I'm also not a Law fan, so a bit of anti-bias there. But I'd say those three really stand out. I'd say I'd put those three and then Kuma as basically being the most developed characters that are not Straw Hats in the current day that I can think of. And then if we want to get into flashback characters, I think there's so many phenomenal flashback characters. Like Hirolook is a phenomenal flashback character, right? I kind of want to put in Fisher Tiger Otohime. We kind of maybe just got a little too little time with them. I don't know. But Kuma's getting up there. I think by the time all is said and done, Kuma might just beat out everybody. Pina says, Morj, you're looking fly as hell today. Thank you. Let's pause real quick to address something, which is that Hurrying Lyrics 44 says, I don't like that gray wall. Well, fuck. So that cancels out the previous comment. But, Gray Wall is unfortunately here to stay. Maybe once it's more decorated with other things, which are coming soon, you will enjoy it more. In fact, that last bit of white is also going to be grayed out at the top of the door. Also, the hairstyle has finally come together. I realized that I didn't really understand what the hairstylist had done. So I was trying to comb it in a way that made no sense. But yeah, I'm I'm happy I went through the long process of growing my hair out. Reflexy says, "Hey Morj, sorry I couldn't attend stream nor reread One Piece in months as I enrolled into college this semester." You couldn't read One Piece because you're in college? I read One Piece. I read a lot of One Piece when I was in college. It was my favorite part of the week when a One Piece chapter came out. I believe Dressrosa was going on for the majority of time that I was in college. Yeah, I think it was mainly Dressrosa. And Dressrosa was slow, man. Dressrosa was slow. I remember thinking, like, by the time I entered college to by the time I exited college, I was like, holy shit, that entire 4-year period, we really just got through Dressrosa. I can't believe how focused on Bonney is now. Yeah, Bonney, who would have thought that she was such an important character? I guess once Akainu gave us that one hint. Yeah, by the time Akainu gave us that one hint of Bonnie's significance, we should have known. But I think this amount of significance we never knew. And I'm seeing comments being like, oh, why is Morj praising Law and stuff like that? No, this doesn't mean I always like Law. It means that, like, I think I've always tried to separate. I don't think people fully understand. I dislike Law as a character, but I don't think I've ever said that he's a bad character. My complaints have always been that this stupid motherfucker just came in and took over the whole story and turned it into the Trafalgar Law show. I didn't like that because I liked the characters we already had, which were the Stride Pirates and Luffy, the characters that I invested like fucking 600 chapters into reading about, and my entire life since basically I was 8 years old. You get what I'm saying? And then the Oda just throws in this fucking Sasuke knockoff, and he's like, "This is your new main character for the next 150 chapters. Deal with it." I fucking hated that dude, but that doesn't mean I thought he was a bad character. I just thought that it was like you could write a phenomenal character, but then if you just like throw away the rest of the story just to rest of the story and characters to just focus on that character, I can appreciate what you're doing with that character, but I can dislike what they're doing to the narrative, if that makes sense. That's why I've always disliked Law, and that has then since then extended to basically me disliking how much people suck off Law and overrate him in terms of his fighting abilities and such. But I don't think I've ever really critiqued Law as a character. I think he's a good character. Royal Fun says he's just salty. I am just salty. That's exactly what it is. I'm just salty. Because, yeah, you know what? Going back to what we were just talking about, I was in college, and I guess the time period of my life doesn't matter, but like imagine 4 years of just like, oh boy, I would like to tune in to read the adventures of Luffy and the Stride Pirates. It's like, oh wait, I forgot. I'm tuning into the stories of Trafalgar Law and Company, right? 4 straight years of that shit. And it drove me mad that people see, like, I wasn't really in tune with the One Piece community or fandom at the time, so I didn't really know what other people's opinions were really. But maybe I went on Reddit. I think I was a One Piece Reddit user at the time. I was a One Piece Reddit user. So it drove me crazy that people were just like enjoying this. I'm like, what the fuck? Oda just wrote Sasuke in and just threw away everybody else, and everybody loves it. That's awesome. Like, let me put it this way. If Law was a character from the beginning, if Law was a character from the beginning, like let's say we followed him as like a main character from the start of the story, I would probably really like him. But I'll never like him because he ruined One Piece for 150 chapters. Anyway, summarization. Thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 9 months. What if Bonnie is Luffy's mom, aged down, but she forgot? That is a new one. All right, we got to start writing shit down. Let's get the Microsoft Paint out. Let's get the stream likes up to 200 also. Breezy2x, thanks for the 5. Who's the best written villain in any manga? I can only do action story stuff. You know what? That's because I don't read like the actual. I don't like. You guys know the niches that I read, right? I read niches that are mainly fiction, fantasy based, with like lots of. I mean, obviously everything's fiction, right? But more fantasy based, or at least action, fighting based, and stuff like that. So I can't speak to like. I haven't read like Monster. I haven't read like What other stuff do people like? Yeah, stuff that people like that doesn't have like superpowers and stuff. Although I like Vinland Saga, but it's close. It's in the same realm. Anyway, out of that stuff, funnily enough, that was a question from I'm promoting this again, but Pirate King Tier podcast, if anyone's interested. That was a question that I answered at length in the Pirate King Tier podcast. I talked about my top 5 villains from anime and manga that were not One Piece. If you guys want to check that out, please check that out. But if I were to pick one as the best, the thing that I said in that podcast, and I'll say the short version here, is that it's too difficult to say what is the best, because how do you value it? You value the story that the villain had, because in my opinion, my favorite story that a villain had was Meruem from Hunter x Hunter. Do you value the philosophies and ideas? In that case, I value Griffith. Story, I would actually put Askeladd in there as well as having a very compelling story. Him or Meruem, I don't know. Yeah, okay, if you value the arc the villain had the most, maybe Meruem. If you value the story overall, maybe Askeladd. If you value the philosophies, ideas, maybe Griffith. There's different answers I could give, but, I would float maybe those 3. I like Funny Valentine from JoJo's quite a bit as well. And a certain villain from part 1 of... The main villain of part 1 of Chainsaw Man, who I won't talk about here, I really, really like, but I wouldn't put that villain quite on par with the... I would put that villain on... I would give that villain props in a certain category as being my favorite in a certain category, but Griffith, Meruem, Askeladd, I'd circle around those 3. Mike T says, hello, Mr. Funnyman. In Chapter 0, Shiki mentions a weapon Roger has before they fight. Could that be the treasure of Hachinosu that was stolen, and Roger got it after defeating Zebek in God Valley? So I actually referenced that. I pull up the panel for that in the video about like what Roger lost to Rocks, the treasure of God Valley. The panel was Shiki talking about an ancient weapon. So Roger knew the location of an ancient weapon, so I don't think it's the same as the treasure. Isaac St. Charles says, what if Opie bad ending and anime fix it like Bleach and Attack on Titan? I still have to watch Attack on Titan, so I don't know. But Bleach, it's fucking awesome getting to rewatch. Like, Bleach getting to rewatch 1,000 Year Blood War, but they're fixing and changing parts that people did not like in the manga. It's so cool. Like, I don't think this is a huge spoiler. There's something called Squad Zero in Bleach that were really hyped up in the manga. Like, imagine, I guess, there's no real equivalent in One Piece, but let's say something random. Like, imagine One Piece, maybe the Gorosei or some... Gorosei aren't even a good... Let's say the Gorosei just for random comparison. It's not even a good comparison, right? Heroes versus villains, whatever. Imagine the Gorosei were really hyped up as being stronger than, like, all the admirals or something like that, right? Imagine that. They're stronger than all of the Marines, right? It's the Gorosei. And then we finally get to see the Gorosei fight, and they all lose in the span of like 4 chapters, right? And that's their first and only fight, right? That's basically what happened in the manga. The anime actually does them justice and reveals a whole bunch of other stuff about them, and the best scene that I can remember in all of 1,000 Year Blood War is actually a scene specifically for a member of that Squad Zero. So that is the most artistic scene that I think 1,000 Year Blood War did. It is fucking awesome. It makes Squad Zero extremely memorable. They absolutely live up to their hype. And ultimately, the overall story is not going to change that much, but I just really look forward to 1,000 Year Blood War because it's giving the one thing that I think every person who has ever experienced an unsatisfying ending to a story asks for, which is a redo. I've never seen this before in any other anime or manga. Because the redo is coming from Word of God himself, right? It's Kubo himself who's overseeing the changes, right? Sometimes you see like an anime go a different route than the manga, and that's technically it's not canon because it's just like it's doing some other stuff to make a scene more hype or make characters get more screen time or something. That's not what's happening in 1,000 Year Blood War. Like, I've never seen this happen before where it's just you get to see the story play out again, but this time in a new medium, more production value medium, anime obviously over manga, and the author's going back and redoing everything that happened before to just make it objective, not correct word, make it better for the vast majority of people, right? Most people are going to prefer the changes. There's so many stories that you wish that could have happened for, right? So many series that went downhill or things went wrong and you're just like, that was disappointing or whatever. Like, how many Naruto fans who did not happen to love the ending would love to see, you know, the anime have just done it again, but this time Kishimoto making all these little changes or something like that. I think that's really cool. So I really look forward to that season coming back, because I did used to like Bleach. I still don't think Thousand Year Blood War is like that well written or anything. It's still got a lot of Bleach issues, but it's way more enjoyable and satisfying now versus the manga, which it wasn't even satisfying, you know. Attack on Titan, I've not watched the ending. I don't know how the anime ending differs from the manga. Please don't spoil on that, but I'm also not super invested on Attack on Titan ever since a certain point in the story passed. But I'm probably going to check it out when I can. Vens Bovice, thanks for the 2. End of chapter 1060, already confirmed Bonney is a kid. I'm not going to say anything confirmed it, right? I wouldn't be surprised if it did, but I would rather not make that canon until, like, I don't know. I'm just not gonna assume that's canon until we get something, like, because the only reason I'm not assuming it's canon is just because it would be such a damning thing against the author that I think would be unfair for us to assume that about him till it's like absolutely confirmed, you know. Fatingo, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 13 months. Dragon did not pipe Bonney. Who was... Oh, yeah, we did get Bonney being Luffy's mom. Also, the Pirate King tier podcast was really good this time around. Keep it up, broski. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate the shout-out. Seriously, this was a really good one. It went into a lot of different topics, including the Wano analysis video, etc., but a lot of other stuff in general. So definitely check it out if you can get a chance. This one went even over an hour, so, you know, if you want to check it out. Anyway, Sean Easton, thanks for the 5. Can't wait for you to do the waifu tier list and all these degenerates have to face what a healthy relationship/marriage is. Need to do research first. I think I don't remember promising a waifu tier list. I said I'd promise it as a certain goal if we need to hit that goal. But we're going to hit 200k subs anyway. So, we'll see. MPA Slick, thanks for the 5. Senor Morgan Freeman, hope you're well, my Nika. Wanna say, fuck Ace, always thought he was overrated. Used to think he was okay, but fans made me hate him. I think Ace is a well-written character for a variety of reasons, but I didn't, okay, a lot of people dislike Ace because he turned around for, you know, the whole Whitebeard taunting and stuff. I'm indifferent to that. I think One Piece is just a type of series that's a little bit different. Like, if you put that in the context of a different series, I would agree with that criticism. But One Piece characters tend to just be written differently and tend to just do very, very, very irrational things for the sake of principle. There's just... And that's a value that's really placed on a pedestal in One Piece. They just do irrational things on the sake of certain principles and to sort of... Like, there's certain ideals that matter more than what is logically correct or something. I don't know if that's making quite sense, but that's the way One Piece presents it. It presents it as sometimes the principle just carries so much weight that you should go against what makes sense, right? That's not to justify what Ace did with turning around for Whitebeard, but that's just the way many One Piece characters act, you know? Like, if we look at things in a different light, we could say, like, Luffy breaking that compass that Robin gave him, right? That probably endangers his entire crew and fucks them up and maybe ruins Vivi's chances potentially of ever getting to Alabasta and saving her people and puts 13 million people to death, right? It worked out, so we don't think about it like that, but sometimes the principle just matters a lot. Like, why doesn't Zoro step back once Mihawk has stabbed him in the heart, you know? Like, he gets to live, sure, in the off chance that Mihawk was a nice guy, not even a nice guy, but a respectful guy, as he turned out to be, that ultimately let Zoro live after seeing that conviction, and then, you know, the rest is history. Zoro gets to go on, get much stronger. But, like, ultimately it's just smart. Like, he could have just stepped back and gotten away with his life, right? There's so many things like that in One Piece where a character does something very irrational, but it's based on a principle that Oda is putting on a certain pedestal. And he's like, I'm going to have this character do this thing that is nonsensical just because the meaning of doing this thing matters more than the logic behind what they should do in this moment, right? That's just a One Piece thing. There's so many other series where these actions wouldn't come across in the same way. But One Piece characters, their actions, their words, their their philosophies, they're generally not very grounded. So if Ace is written as this character who just won't run away and won't let anyone disrespect those that he cares about or something like that, if he's just written like that, like I won't run away, that's just who he is. And if you dislike that fact about Ace, here's some good news for you. He died for that. He got what he deserved in the end, right? Like, what more do you want? You're mad that he wasted everybody's lives, etc. Well, he got punished for it. It's a double-edged sword. That same trait that makes him such a strong, powerful character with so much potential to reach the heights of Roger, potentially even become Pirate King if he'd been left to continue on his way, right? That's a double-edged sword, which ultimately got him killed. So, I don't know what more people want. Like, yeah, he made a really dumb decision, and he died for it. Like, lots of times authors do these things where they have characters do these really dumb, arguably selfish decisions, and it's just like, well, it goes along with the themes of the story, so I just let him get away with it. Oda had Ace die for that. So, I don't get where the continued Ace hate comes from. Like, why did he turn around and stuff like that? It's like, this motherfucker, he's dead. What more do you want to happen to him? He died. Like, good. If you think he's a shitty character, congratulations. He got murdered for it. Like, I don't get it. So yes, like you want him to be dug up and like get like what they like piss on his dead body or something like that. Like, what do you want? Anyway, moving past that. Ramen Stains, thanks for the 5. As someone who also read Dressrosa weekly, there was a lot worse with it than just lobbying the MC. Birdcage, non-crew fights, waiting for Luffy's haki. Dressrosa, I don't critique Dressrosa as an arc overall that much because it really is an arc that becomes much better on reread. I still think it is an insanely packed and overly dense arc with just too much little shit going on and too many little plot threads and just too slow. Even on reread, it's like there was a time I did a Dressrosa binge read again, and I was actually really enjoying it. And then it hit the center section of the arc where it's again Oda spending chapter after chapter just like moving the pieces around, trying to get everyone in position for the fights, but it's taking some time and it goes on for like 20 chapters. And I just dropped the reread as well. That's not to say I think that Dressrosa is a bad arc, but and I understand that for many people it's like one of their favorite arcs or like even their favorite arc post time skip, right? I'm just talking about like random this is just a personal thing. I did not like it being the Trafalgar Law story. I don't think I ever even, if I were to do a Dressrosa critique or something, I would never even put that forward as, a critique of the arc. Like, oh, it's too much Trafalgar Law. This is purely me, because, sometimes that's just the way the story needs to be, right? Like, Skypiea was not a very Straw Hat-focused storyline. It was, the Straw Hats were kind of tourists, and the citizens, I think, were really the main, I don't know, the storyline really ran through them. I think there's several storylines where the Straw Hats you would not say are the main focus. My gripe with Law there is really the fact that I had waited and waited for so fucking... the Straw Hats get split up at Sabaody. Then it's just Luffy for 100 chapters, right? I'm waiting so long for the Straw Hats to finally come back together. Okay, then there's this time skip. Then there's Fishman Island, which is an arc, but not really a high-stakes arc. So I'm waiting to see what I want to see, which is all the Straw Hats, really reunited and in action, kicking ass in the New World. That's what I've wanted for so long. It's been 200 chapters at this point, right? And instead, the focus is just on this dude, Trafalgar Law, who, he takes out Virgo, the strongest guy in Punk Hazard. First time Luffy doesn't get to beat the strongest guy on the island. Fucking Trafalgar Law does. And we get to the next island, and it's 100 chapters long, moving at a snail's pace, where I think that's maybe the time that Oda started really slowing down the rate of chapters. So we're getting 3 chapters every 4 weeks. And it's just, all about this dude. Luffy's lost to this Coliseum fighting fodder for, half the arc, while Law's out there fighting Doflamingo and Fujitora, doing all this epic-ass shit. Luffy's clowning around as Lucy. Zoro's running around looking for his sword. They ship off half the crew, so they're not even part of the story anymore. Keep in mind, this is not stuff that I view as a real critique of the story of Dressrosa, because ultimately you would critique the story based on what's the story it's actually trying to tell. It's fine if it's not actually about the Straw Hats, right? Half the crew gets shipped off, fine. The story's not about them. That's okay. But this is my personal dislike of of the of what was going on, which is like I just didn't like that I'm not getting to see. It's like a maybe an immature thing. I don't like that I don't get to see the characters that I like the most getting to take center stage. That was it. That's why I didn't like Law. That's it. I would propose like criticism to Dressrosa, like the pacing. Like I think that that's valid. I think maybe one too many character storylines, or maybe the threads were a bit choppy, how they're all developing, stuff like that. But I think Dressrosa also had a lot of strengths. I don't want to get into Dressrosa critiques. But I would never put forward, like, I don't think I've ever put forward my dislike for Law as an actual critique of the story at any point in One Piece, or a critique of the character himself. I acknowledge it purely as a as a personal issue. You get it? Agenda Pirate, thanks for the 5. Attack on Titan made such few small changes, it's really not that different. Manga people that hated on the ending just mad that anime people are loving it and coping. I do want to see how it finishes out. Because Attack on Titan was once one of my favorite series to follow. It was never one of my favorites, but it was one of the most gripping series. Like, the mystery of it really kept you going. Candy Cheese Truckman, thanks a lot. Odds of a second round of plushies. I missed them the first time. Also, since you appreciate international viewers, I'm from New Zealand. Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Have you ever seen Flight of the Conchords? It's one of my favorite comedy TV shows. I don't know if you guys... Flight of the Conchords, it makes a lot of, I don't know, New Zealand specific jokes, but they're not even New Zealand. It's more jokes about how they're from New Zealand, I guess, which isn't that different from like American culture, but it's slightly different enough that it's funny. And they also make a lot of jokes about how they hate Australians. I don't know. I would recommend Flight of the Conchords to anybody. Anyway, second round of plushies. I'm probably not going to do a second round of plushies simply because, how do I explain this? It's more trouble than it's worth. In a very literal sense, it's more trouble than it's worth. Just because, like, you have to put effort into promoting the plushies, obviously. And you can, like, it's just, there's other things, like, basically... Like, if people like a poster, it's like this, it's like less effort, but I don't want to get into it. But basically, the plushie process is a very convoluted one, with going back and forth with the people that run it. And it's just it's a long process, basically. You got to promote it, you got to do certain things, there's certain parts of what you got to uphold, etc. I love the fact that people went out and bought the plushies and everything like that. I really like the fact that people supported, and like the fact that they have a weird ass looking like Mexican version of Luffy, I guess, sitting on their walls and stuff. So I really, really appreciate that. But ultimately, I'm not gonna push for like another run of plushies. If I did, it would be a different type of plushie. I think Library of O'Hara had a great concept where he did a globe of the One Piece map, which is a plushie that anybody would enjoy as a One Piece fan. I wouldn't sell this type of plushie again. So unfortunately, that's not the case. But I might do a different version of Morj plush maybe down the line. So maybe, I'll say maybe. They have contacted me again since then, asking about it periodically, but it's just a process. Blaze, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 7 months. I agree, let's be reasonable here. If Oda doesn't do any sus stuff after her age is confirmed, I don't think it's that bad. I think ultimately, if Oda doesn't do any sus stuff after this, if her age is confirmed to be a kid, then we will all basically be like, this is really weird that he did this, and then after that, people will kind of try and just look the other way and move on, which it is what it is. It's just what it's going to be, basically. As long as he doesn't keep doing it. As long as he doesn't keep bringing it up, we're fine. But again, let's not jump to that conclusion just yet. Reflexy, thanks for being a member for 8 months. Can Kuma's backstory have him see Bonney at Saboti? I don't know. I think that would be really, really nice if he did that. I think it would be a really touching scene if that's their goodbye moment. But I also like the idea that, like, Kuma was so much a man on the mission, right, that he sacrificed the opportunity to see Bonney to go save the Strats instead, because he knew that's what he had to do with the little time he had remaining. Dante G, thanks a lot. What would you prefer? Imu's ability being as wacky as Gear 5 as some theories suggest, or being completely serious in contrast? Keep up the good content. I think, what would I prefer? Preference would be, preference is hard, because I didn't know. I didn't know how much I would enjoy Luffy's ability being Gear 5th and being this wacky cartoonish thing until it actually happened. Initially, I wasn't like, if you'd asked me that like 200 chapters ago, I'd have said that would be weird. I don't know if I would like that. But if you ask me now, I like it a lot. So if you were to ask me, right, like, I could easily see myself enjoying Imu having a really wacky ability as well. However, I think with the direction that Oda's kind of going for, I think it feels to me more like the contrast is ultimately going to matter a lot. Like, I feel as though it makes sense if Imu is this very traditionally dark, evil, imposing, very serious, very intimidating overlord figure, like a, like one of the traditional ones, like a Sauron, like a Voldemort, etc., yada yada yada, right? Not necessarily like those characters, but you get what I'm saying, right? A traditional evil emperor type character, and then you get the contrast of what's actually clashing with him, right? What clashes with him is a very liberating, free-spirited, carefree, childish, like absurd hero. I think that contrast is very powerful. To see basically Im's like very dark, intimidating facade, his persona of like just being so ominous, so oppressive, etc. That being contrasted by Luffy just being this goofy guy that comes in and can do whatever he wants, despite all of Imu's seeming, seeming invincibility or seeming threatening persona, etc. You get what I'm saying? Like, I think that having Luffy be the only one that's so goofy, so silly, in the face of all this darkness, I think that that's what gives a greater sense of meaning to what Luffy represents and what he's bringing to the table in a fight against Imu. But if Oda's got a really cool way to like have Imu have an ability maybe similar to Luffy's, but just like a much darker spin on it, that could work out really, really well too. So I'm not going to say anything just yet. Let's make sure if I haven't missed anything. Okay. Noah Phillips, thanks for the 10. Bleach ending is different from Naruto. Bleach had good ideas, bad execution. Naruto had bad ideas with the final war. You actually could be spot on with that. At least, I know there's Bleach and Naruto fans here who are seething at that comment. When I say I think that that's right, that's in my opinion. I feel like that does mirror how I felt when I think about those two. So I think that feels correct to me. Like, it fits how I view it. Did I say figuring out Luffy's age? Oh my god. Oh my god. Alright. We gotta fix this. What is this? Alright, let's just do new. My bad, guys. My bad. I've never been a great multitasker. Naruto had bad ideas with the final war. Yeah, Bleach, good ideas, bad execution. Naruto had bad ideas with the final war. But I would agree that Naruto, like, I felt like nothing felt super rushed or anything like. It was clearly what the author wanted to do. It's just maybe people didn't enjoy what happened as much, right? Also, why do you think Kuma agreed to have his humanity taken away? Was he forced? I did a video about this. Writing Luffy again. Why? Figuring out Bonney's true origin / age. Let's do that. I did a video about this, and again, I regret doing this topic too early, but I did this topic towards the beginning of Egghead. It's a topic literally called the real reason that Kuma gave up his. let me drop it in chat. It's a topic very literally because people have been asking about this recently. Morj Kuma. It's a video literally called the true reason that Kuma allowed his mind to be erased. So it's a very pertinent topic. It's just one that I did too early. Way too early. Like, I think before people were even really interested in it. But I go fairly in depth there, so I'm just going to go ahead and pin that. Talha says, shout out your Twitter likes. I like the messaging. If you've seen a video I did recently, I do address things in my own way. which is I talk about was Rox the hero of God Valley or not. So I suggest checking that out if you want more of, I guess, my thoughts on that. Where I just address it in my own way, and then those who want to take away what they want to take away can do so. I mean, those who take away what they, yeah, basically what I said. Want to do this? Yeah, let's do this. Okay. So here's some options. One that was thrown out, and we're going to figure this out one by one. All right. So before we forget, one that was thrown out was Bonney is Luffy's mom. I'm actually not going to include this. I don't think it's likely. I think that that's not likely. So the options we got are that Bonney is a clone of Ginny, right? Bonney is a but even if she's a clone of Ginny, wouldn't that still make her a kid? Unless she's okay, Bonney is already in the flashback but hasn't been shown. Is already born / cloned in the flashback but hasn't been shown. This was one that I thought was interesting, right? Bonney is Ginny, but after her memories were erased and she regressed to a child due to her fruit. And then lastly, Bonney is just a literal kid. All right, we're going to evaluate all these and try and see which one will get Oda in the least amount of trouble. All right. Grizzly Adams, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 3 months. I hope you enjoyed the last podcast. Regarding Bonnie's future, I feel like she has 4 options. Join the Straw Hats, join the Revolutionaries, they need to show up for this, captured by the world government, or leaves with Vegapunk in between arcs. Talking about Bonnie's future. Yeah, if I were to break those down in my head real quick, how I think, join the Straw Hats is always a thing on the table. I mean, I even put out a video towards the beginning of the arc being like, yeah, Bonney joining the Straw Hats seems guaranteed, but now I'm like, would that even be a good thing to happen? Do I even want to see Bonney on the crew? I think we need to understand Bonney more before I even lean towards wanting her to join the crew. Join the Revolutionaries. I feel like Bonnie's personality, I like Bonney as a character. I don't know if I'd like her in the Straw Hats. Because I feel like you can only have so many of certain combinations of characters and personalities join the crew. Like, Bonnie's a very aggressive, angry type personality very often. And I like that being Nami's thing, you know? And she often calls out characters' stupidity and stuff, and I like that being Nami's thing. But at the same time, Bonney has that childish streak to her, perhaps literally, of enjoying, you know, goofing around and having fun, and, like, enjoying eating food with, like, Luffy and Chopper and stuff. So, I don't know. Okay. Captured by the world government. Oh, shit. Captured by the world government. How does that help things? I guess that kind of almost sets up a Bonney rescue arc, which I don't think the Straw Hats are bonded enough with her to want to do that. They really aren't. But it could lead to something, some other story plot point down the line. I think that she needs to be freed right here, right? Because Kuma's been telling her about how, like, Nika will save her for so long. I'd rather she not get captured. Unless Luffy does successfully save her and then she maybe pays him back by sacrificing herself. I don't know. Join the Revolutionaries. That would be cool, but I'm just like, you know what? Okay, here's what's ultimately going to tell us the truth about Bonnie's ability, okay? You know what's the most important thing? Or not Bonnie's ability, Bonnie's future, all right? Here's where Bonnie's future is basically determined, all right? We will be able to understand where she goes in the future the moment that we understand this, all right? The moment that we understand this panel, all right? Wait, I am screen sharing right now, right? Yeah. This panel. When I heard that you fled the government, a chill went down my spine. But that is all over now. You people, I'll never forgive you, never. Why? What is the truth about not just her origins and her age, but why is she so important? But then on the flip side, why is Saturn now okay with letting her go? Was it just Kuma related? Like, was Bonney being held by the world government as a way to make Kuma obey? But if that's the case, then it wouldn't matter at this point, right? Because Kuma's already turned into a robot. And how important even is it for them to make Kuma obey? Why did a chill go down his spine when he heard that Bonney was gone? That's what's going to matter. So I think we really can't tell till then. Because it's like, if she's super important in some aspect, then joining the Straw Hats or the Revolutionary Army is on the table. If not, then suddenly her story just doesn't matter as much. Because she's not a super strong fighter. She doesn't have a lot of relevance lore-wise. She's just a person. People think Kuma would be the reason. Isvara Op says Kuma was the reason. IK Sister says the real-life Bonney was captured and sentenced to death, but managed to postpone the sentence because she was pregnant. I wonder if something like this will happen to Ginny. Oh, shit. That is interesting. That is very interesting. It's very interesting. Yeah, I think how important Bonney herself is as an individual is ultimately going to matter. Like, does she have some key ability? Does the aging fruit matter in some special way? I don't know. So it's too hard to figure that out, her future, till we know that stuff. Ryan Chan, or Ryan Chan. I think I always get this wrong. Thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 13 months, man. If instead of Ace, Luffy had died in Marineford, would Ace still be the future Pirate King / Joy Boy, given our knowledge of the Nika fruit? If instead of Ace, Luffy had died in Marineford, would Ace still be the future Pirate King / Joy Boy, given our knowledge of the Nika fruit? That's a good question. I think that's a really good question. Because I don't think the Nika fruit would have chosen Ace. Because I just don't think he's that type of person. Right? But it depends how much you think destiny matters in the story. Because I think Ace could have become Pirate... Here, what I'll say is this. I think Ace could have definitely become Pirate King. I think he could definitely have become Pirate King. Right? He just has the potential to do that. Joy Boy is interesting because it's like, to be Joy Boy, do you need the Nika fruit? I don't think that that's necessarily true. I just think that it's more fitting that, well, but Joy Boy has awakened or returned or whatever. That's what Zunisha says when the Nika fruit awakens. Let's reframe it. Could Ace have played the role of Joy Boy, right? Could Ace have played out what the new Joy Boy is expected to do, right? Without ever necessarily like embodying Joy Boy in that same way. Like, could Ace have brought about the dawn of the world, right? Put it this way, could Ace do what Dragon is trying to do right now? Like, I don't think Dragon thinks he's Joy Boy, but Dragon's trying to overthrow the world government, free the world, yada, 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 right? I think everything will come down to the answer. I think the answer to this question is very simply, is the Nika fruit necessary to defeat Im? Right? Is this a thing where, like, Haki, like, what we're going to be shown is that when it comes to Imu specifically, you need to be the embodiment of Nika to be able to defeat him, right? Like, Haki alone, like, just a really, really strong Haki user, like Roger, or probably Dragon or something. Like, it's not just, like, Imu, if Imu's just on a totally different level with whatever his fruit and his ability is, and the only thing that can really fight back against it is the shenanigans of something like the Nika fruit, then I don't think Ace could have played the role of Joy Boy. I don't think anybody can. Like, if the Nika fruit is the key. And one thing that this kind of goes back to is, you know, the previous storyline, the huge storyline that foreshadows all of this, which is, what is it? The Skypiea arc, right? Skypiea, ruled by an evil god, yada, yada, yada. No one can defeat him. It's been, like, some will that's been passed down for God knows how many centuries to relight the fire of Chandra. You know, the same thing. Skypiea is the same thing as the rest of One Piece, right? So, in Skypiea, even someone like Wiper, right, who is every bit as strong as Luffy in that arc, and every bit as strong-willed as Luffy, even he, despite his best efforts, ultimately cannot take down Enel. And it's not because of any of his own weakness or shortcoming. It's just in the context of that arc, Luffy was just, he himself is the natural enemy of God, right? The key is the Gomu Gomu no Mi, right? The key is the rubber fruit. Luffy himself obviously still has to be really strong to beat Enel, because Enel's no pushover even without that, right? Like, Enel can fight toe-to-toe with Luffy even once you take the lightning fruit out of the equation, right? Luffy was just ultimately stronger. So it's not like, oh, it's just the rubber fruit, so he automatically beats Enel. I'm not trying to say that. But the key, right, what made Luffy God's natural enemy, what made him essentially the Joy Boy of the Skypiea arc, right? The person that was able to resolve the will that's been passed down, the person that was able to overthrow God, bring freedom back to the land, ring the bell, all that shit. The thing that really made him the person that could do that was the fact that he carried this fruit that was unique to him, that made him just the natural enemy of God, the one person that could defeat Enel, right? That's how it was framed at right then. Like, that's what they're talking about. The only person in the world, they believed at the time, the only person in the world that could defeat Enel. So, long story short, I think that's a great question. That's actually one that's, like, fun enough that you could even do a full video down the line or something. You can explore the possibilities of, like, Luffy without the Nika fruit, or, like, if somebody else had to be the one to carry this will or something, like, what that would mean. But, yeah, I think ultimately it depends on if the Nika fruit is just as important in the broader story of One Piece as the Gomu Gomu no Mi was in the context of Skypiea. And I think that that's very, very possible. All right. Cloaksies, thanks for the 10. No, Naruto definitely same as Bleach. The ideas were fine, but the execution sucked. Casuals miss a lot of the foreshadowing. What was bad was execution, like how Kaguya came or Madara died, not the idea itself. Then we're getting in the foreshadowing's not. No, foreshadowing doesn't, like, yeah, everyone knows because Kaguya was foreshadowed. Like, everyone knows that she was foreshadowed. Like, that doesn't change the fact that Madara was in story, right? Much, much, much more built up as a villain, right? The author had put much more effort to be invested in Madara's story as a villain, in building up Madara as a villain, right? In getting the readers interested in Madara as a villain. He had done a lot more. Like, it doesn't matter if there's a few panels foreshadowing the existence of Kaguya. Execution is, how did the author go about building up interest in a villain being the final big bad of the story? He did way more for that for Madara, right? So swapping that for Kaguya, the execution is poor because he has given us no reason to enjoy, what do you call? Oh, wait. You're right, though. I'm sorry. You're 100% right. No, you're 100% right. The ideas were fine, but the execution sucked. I do think that okay, so you're saying the idea of Kaguya being swapped for Madara is, in theory, a good idea if it could have been done well. Therefore, it was the execution that sucked, not the idea. That is really I think you might be right. I think I might be wrong. You might be right. It depends where you draw the line between ideas versus execution, because it's kind of like, okay, maybe there's a universe where Kaguya being the final villain is a good idea, but it's just like, so much of the story would be drastically different that I almost don't view it as like, what do you call it? Like, it's just a totally different story what that would be in that case, you know, if Kaguya was involved much more heavily early on. So I still view it more so as like, it's just a bad idea to try and swap to a different villain rather than poor execution. Like, I would view poor execution being more like, yeah, if Kaguya was already being involved in the story earlier on, but just the writing around her was sloppy or something. But this, like, the idea ultimately was still, yeah, I'm gonna have Madara be built up as the final villain, but then turn around towards the end and, like, have a twist that Kaguya is the final villain, right? I view that more as an idea than poor execution, because the idea seems to be a twist, like a twist to have this character actually be revealed to be the big bad. But I would agree that you could blur the lines between, like, well, how do we say this is a bad idea versus bad execution? I don't know. I still think that I would lean towards the logic that Bleach had more interesting ideas, but, like, the things that I disliked about it were how rushed things were, how some things were a little poorly explained, how many characters seemed like they were about to get character threads, but then those got chopped off. Lots of shitty dialogue, and just generally kind of cutting corners, right? I never felt like Naruto was really cutting corners. I get what you're saying with the Kaguya thing, but I think that was always intentional, right? That having a twist shift at the end. So I don't think he executed something wrong, like an idea that he wanted to do. I think that was the idea all along. So I'm shifting back to thinking that the first guy was right, that Naruto did have bad ideas but fine execution, whereas Bleach had good ideas, or at least interesting ideas, but poor execution. So now I'm thinking about it, I do think maybe that first guy was right, but I see what you're saying. It's a weird line, right? Where do you say idea stop, execution begins? Anyway. Chopper Man, thanks for the 5. Agree with Dressrosa take as a Sanji fan. Reading Weekly and him just getting yeeted for the big arc sucked after reading Weekly since Fishman Island. Exactly. Like, it's a personal preference thing. It's like, okay, I guess Sanji just doesn't matter this arc. Obviously, Whole Cake was his arc, but in the moment you're not feeling that. Eyes96, thanks for the 10. Hating Australians, well, Aussie viewer here. Gotta say your stream schedules really works out for me. Gives me something to listen to whilst at work. Keep up the content. New Zealand doesn't actually, like, the New Zealand show Flight of the Conchords doesn't actually hate on Australians. It's more of it's a dumb running gag, basically, that there's this secret hidden rivalry between New Zealanders and Australians that no Americans can really understand or sympathize with. But yeah, good to hear that the stream schedule works out for you. I know that the stream schedules can't always please everybody, but it's always cool to hear, like, overseas viewers and everything like that are able to catch it sometimes. Toji, thanks for the 10. Ace is difficult because all these people came across the seas and died specifically to save you, and you threw it away over a Yo Daddy insult. It's not that he's written bad, we just hate him himself for that. I get it. Like, I'm never going to go at length to really defend it. I more so empathize with Ace, the story of him beforehand, the story of him on the platform, etc. I'm not a big Ace fan in general. I actually liked Ace a lot better before in Alabasta. I liked him a lot better before the Marineford arc, because Marineford is where we got to know the real Ace, and the real Ace is a lot more angsty, pissed off, surly, etc. than he was initially presented to us as in Alabasta. Like, Alabasta, he was this cool laid-back surfer dude. This cool laid-back surfer dude, older brother to Luffy. Seems really casual, doesn't seem like he's got a care in the world. Yeah, he's chasing Blackbeard, but he's not too stressed about that shit. Real Ace is like a whole big ball of angst. So I'm not saying, like, obviously we just didn't fully understand the character till then, right? So I respect the writing around Ace quite a bit in Marineford. I just never liked him that much as a character by the end of Marineford. Like, a personality type thing. Like, he just wasn't my favorite character to read about by the end of I mean, I liked reading about him. I don't even know what to say. He just wasn't one of my favorite characters by the end of Marineford, but I did think he's one of the best written characters in One Piece by the end of Marineford, if that makes sense, right? Personal preference doesn't always have to line up with, like, what you respect, right? Trafalgar Law, great example. But the final bit of it, of, like, him turning back and screwing everybody over, that's what a lot of people really criticize him for. I never really criticized him for that. I get why people do, but at the same time, I'm like, well, he's dead, so let's just leave it at that. He died for it, right? He fucked up. He died for it. You're right. He probably shouldn't have turned around. Guess who knows that now? Ace. So, yeah. I'm not saying it's an invalid critique of his character. Like, I get that it's probably going too over the top in pursuing principles when you're just throwing away everybody's efforts who did all of this for you, right? It throws a lot of that away. But, it's One Piece. That's just the way characters act. That's one of the most extreme versions of it that you'll ever see, even in One Piece. But it's the way shit went down. And, yeah, he died. And you know what? The story is better for that, right? Ultimately, Ace had to die one way or another for the entire story from Marineford to really come together. And for it to shape Luffy's story more than anything, which is more important. But you can debate, like, whether the reason was a good reason or not, right? Like, should have been something else, Andrew Anderson, thanks for the 5. Can we bring the stream back down? No, we're not doing that. All right. Kino the Far, thanks for the 10. Hi, Morj. Car broke down again. I'm so sorry, man. I hope you're doing well after what happened with your friend. I can't believe I said that after I just said that your car broke down, so this is stupid. Should have checked myself. I'm sorry. It's been a bad month. I understand. I know it's been a rough month for you. I don't want One Piece stuff. I don't want Dragon to have cucked Kuma, but Ginny being the captain of the East. Kuma was a man of the cross though, so he probably wasn't too upset. Look, if you're a man of the cross, you can never be upset about getting cucked, right? Like, if we want to use that phrase. Ginny was throwing herself at him for so long. He has no right to be upset about anything. Do we really have to put this down? We'll put it down. Wait. Dragon. What's even the theory? Is the theory Dragon and Ginny were a thing, and then Luffy? Like, what's the theory? I don't get it. Oh, this guy. Dick so small I piss on myself. Bonney is Ginny who went back so far. Sorry if I can't read out your full title because it's so long it gets cut off. But I did get to see it once. Why did I get to see it once? Maybe because I saw it in the studio. Let me try and see it again. It is a funny title or name. Why did I say title? Dick so small I piss on my balls. Even here it gets cut off, but I assume it says balls. Bonney is Ginny who went back so far as a baby that she grew up a second time as a whole new person. No pawpaw memory removal. Oh shit. That'd be a scary use of that ability. That'd be a really scary use of that ability. That is interesting. We gotta put that down. Bonney is Ginny who used the age fruit and went so far back she forgot everything because she was like a baby, and so she grows up with no memories. It's interesting. In a moment we're going to start going through these and evaluating, and I'll see what other theories people have been throwing out. I'm just trying to catch these supers real quick. Alex Lakander, thanks for the 2. Ace could be Nika. Check Ace in his cover story 272. Okay, let's check what he's saying. Chapter 272. It's worth a look. I'm talking more so about. Oh, I see. That is funny. Okay, let's put this. All right. You could argue that this is a Nika-esque. I mean, it is a Nika-esque silhouette, right? Like, we would associate that. I'm looking more so at, like, is this just a, is this just like a random thing? Like, at some point you're gonna have a character running away and have a silhouette like that. Like, the reason the Luffy moment stands out so much, like Luffy's Nika moment stands out so much, is because it's associated with Skypiea, the drums, etc. Let's actually take a look at that again. What chapter is that? 270, maybe? Around there? Wait, you know what? That's fucking crazy, because, like, that's also in the Skypiea arc, so it might be intentional. Maybe 264? When does the dance scene happen? Anyone know? Dance scene? 260? Fuck does this happen? 255? 253? Maybe 253. I'm sorry I'm wasting time looking at this shit, but it's important stuff to look at. Oh, yeah. This is a great chapter, by the way. This chapter is just... It's like a classic... Just... Crew is chilled out... Doing family stuff. Can you imagine a chapter nowadays of us getting just like a panel of Luffy looking at a pot boiling? And that takes up a third of the page? This would never happen today. Just the pacing and time taken for interactions was so different. Nowadays you basically have like 8 straw hats in a panel, and they're all saying a speech bubble basically, and that's their interaction. It's just the way shit is. The story's so much bigger now. Just the way shit is. So much more stuff going on. You don't got time for this. But, okay, so we got this. But here's my only thing with that is that, like, you can probably find panels of so many characters doing, like, a silhouette or shadow of somebody in a sort of Nika-esque pose. Like, if we're going to say that about Ace, then does that mean that Sanji could be Nika? Does that mean that Luffy or Nami could be Nika? Does that mean Chopper can be Nika? Like, like, ultimately it was just a panel of Ace running away. I don't think that's... Like, I don't think you can ascribe... I'm sure if you went through the entire story, you could find another couple examples of something like that, Um, but it is something to think about just because it's Ace. So, he's supposed to be the next Joy Boy. So it's something to think about. I just don't think that the Nika fruit would have chosen Ace because Ace's personality is quite different from Luffy's in many ways, and Luffy does seem to embody that sort of more um that sort of like the name is fucking Joy Boy, right? That sense of joy, elation, etc. That's more Luffy. Ace is more of a just ultimately more burdened and serious individual. I don't know if Ace could have been Nika, but like I don't know if the Nika fruit would have chosen Ace. That's all I gotta say. I just don't know. But I think it's a debate that could be had for sure. It depends maybe how you interpret a lot of the Destiny stuff, basically. Um, and in general, what the role of Joy Boy entails. 1 second. Oh, I missed one from GK. Sorry, GK. Thanks for the 5. Could Bonney or her fruit be related to the treasure in Pirate Island / God Valley? That's been a bit though, right? And it just hasn't come up in Kuma's backstory. It could be. It definitely could be, but it's also just like we haven't gotten any reference to it just yet. Like it seems like the stories kind of diverged. Like the treasure stuff, that's Rox and Roger stuff, and then the Revolutionary Army stuff that seemed to segue with like Ivankov, Kuma, Ginny going off to do their own thing. Joyboy56, thanks for the 2. Thoughts on Attack on Titan? I need to finish I'll watch the anime at some point, basically. I stopped reading Attack on Titan a little bit after mild spoilers. There's a time skip. I read a bit into that, like a bit after the time skip, and then I took a pause, and I'll probably watch it to see how it pans out. Noah Phillips, thanks for the 5. Do you think Oda's art has gotten worse? Would you say we're living the era of scuff piece? Yeah, I definitely think that Oda's art has gotten, like, how do I say this? Don't take this the wrong way. I think, yeah, if you look at the average, I can pull up the chapter again that I just had, and I can compare it to a chapter that we have today, and I think if you look at the 2 chapters, I think most would agree that one has much cleaner, more detailed, more clear, more expressive art than what we have today. However, that is because Oda has to pack a lot more into a chapter nowadays, right? So art cannot be the priority. And that's not the same as saying that like individual panels today can't be just as good or better than what we had before. I think there's a lot of phenomenal bits of artwork that we got throughout what, like, even just thinking recently, like when they're rolling into Onigashima, right? You get a phenomenal bit of artwork just as they're entering the island, right? Like entering into like the big shot of the skull and everything. Like there's really good bits of artwork in One Piece even nowadays. But if I'm saying like the average art chapter to chapter, I think obviously it's much better, like much better back then. I think also just things like paneling, scene direction, etc. It is significantly better back in the day. But that's not to say that Oda doesn't try to make certain scenes or moments really, really stand out artistically. And there are moments where the scene direction is really strong, like obviously the Gear 5th reveal, right? So it's just more few and far between that we see Oda at his best when it comes to trying to do things artistically. Like right now his focus is more so like let's cover as much of the story as we can in a given chapter, I think. And that's just where the series has to be at this point for a weekly series. Anime ZQ sub, thanks a lot. Peter Falk, thanks for the 5. Morj, what's your take on Luffy's dream? Do you think it's tied to the same themes as Nika and Joy Boy? Any opinion on what it is? I have to leave that for a video because I have a really good video, in my opinion, a good video on that coming out at some point soon. I'm trying to find a good window because the reality is that it's funny when really interesting shit is going on in the manga, and the reality is that everybody wants content that's related to the manga. And I myself feel more compelled to want to write about what's currently going on. Like, tomorrow's video is about Kuma, because I want to talk about Kuma right now, because that's just the way it is, right? then there's certain topics that are kind of evergreen that you save for when either it happens to be relevant again, or when there's maybe something not so, maybe we're at a bit more of an interval phase in the manga, or it's a break week or something. But you know, I do want to talk about Luffy's dream. I think we have a lot of clues as to what it could be, but I do think it, and I definitely do think it's tied to the same themes as Nika and Joy Boy. Breezy2X, thanks for the 2. What's the coolest epithet in the show? You are asking for an epithet tier list, which we are going to do at some point on another rainy day. I don't try to do too many tier lists back to back, and we did do a tier list somewhat recently, but epithet tier list is coming up. So I'm not going to say what I think just yet. Kino the Far, thanks for the 5. Sorry that your week is still not going well. Sorry that things have been rough recently. Dragon cucked Kuma, had Luffy, and Kuma erased his memories to get rid of the memory of Ginny getting the will of D, among other sad story reasons. Well, I hope that this type of nonsense is making you feel better, Kino. But I can't say I agree. All right, let's start discussing Bonney, for real. Let's take a look. DM Fuerte says, I thought Oda had assistants drawing for him. You know what's funny is, like, I genuinely believe it would be so much better if Oda just actually had assistants, as far as I understand. I think Oda put out something about this recently, or in the past few years. They do a lot of background work, whereas he will do the primary action. But here's the thing with assistants. It makes sense once Oda explained it himself, but, like, in my mind, things would be so much better if Oda just had to do the writing and the story, because the story is that's his greatest strength, honestly, like the writing and the story, right? I'm not reading One Piece for the art, although occasionally the art is really good, but I'm not reading One Piece for the art, certainly not for the paneling or the scene direction. That's me personally, okay? However, what Oda has said, if I don't remember which interview, but what he said is that he really, like, if he couldn't draw it anymore, he would just quit, because for him, the most fun part is getting to draw the actual characters doing stuff. And he's like, sometimes when I draw a really powerful scene, like, I'll go stand in, like, I'll walk around my room and do, like, a triumphant pose or something like that. So it's funny because we don't quite get the mind of a mangaka artist, because for them, their greatest joy is, like what we appreciate the most is ultimately the story that we're getting overall. And that's what we respect and appreciate the creator the most for, the story that he's giving us, right? For him, the fun, like the real joy of it all is not just like cerebrally thinking up of the story and like having it all flow out of his brain to let people find out about it. For him, the true joy is really getting to draw the things that he imagines, right? So it's kind of like, yeah, would One Piece probably be better if he passed off the art to maybe somebody else who could imitate his style and maybe do it even sharper or something? Or maybe he still gets to draw parts of it, like the most important parts, but somebody else is doing the in-between stuff a lot. Yeah, we would probably get One Piece, maybe less chapter breaks, maybe this reading a chapter, the flow would be even better. And you know what's funny? The story and chapter to chapter writing would be even better, because Oda would be switching from spending 50% of his time drawing and 50% of his time like writing, like thinking of the story and the plot and character dialogue, etc., to putting all of his brain power into that, right? So everything would objectively improve if he's passing off artistic duties to somebody else. People have said the same about Togashi, but what for the author, what they're losing personally out of the process is too much, and it sucks the passion out of them being able to work on what they love to work on. So, you know, sometimes just because things seem to like perfectly click or make sense for us, it's like, why don't you just do this? It's like, well, then why don't I just fucking quit writing One Piece if I'm not gonna be able to draw it anymore? So it's just funny the way that, you know, you don't really get one. You're kind of missing the perspective of you know, the creator side of things in that sense, right? Even if it just makes so much sense from our perspective. John678, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for Pirate King tier member. I'm sorry, I misread. Pirate King tier member for 2 months, man. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Came out Friday. What do you think the Nika fruit would have chosen if Luffy did die? My bet is on Buggy. Oh, that's interesting. Also, thanks for putting me on Bloodborne from all of your FromSoft talk. It's my first Soulsborne game, and it's been great so far. Fuck you. I didn't put you on Bloodborne. I haven't even gotten to play Bloodborne yet because I don't have a PlayStation. God damn it. You're playing the one Soulsborne game that I want to play more than anything, and you're thanking me for putting you on it. I'm so jealous. I want to... Everybody says... Listen, treasure what you're doing, because everybody says Bloodborne is... Or diehard FromSoft people say that Bloodborne is the best FromSoft game. Elden Ring, obviously, is Elden Ring. But a lot of diehard Soulsborne fans say that Bloodborne is the best one, right? So I've gotten to play Sekiro. I've gotten to play Dark Souls 1. I've gotten to play Dark Souls 3. Bloodborne is the one that I really wanted to play before I tried Elden Ring, and I haven't gotten to play it yet. And you're starting it for the first... You're starting FromSoft for the first time, and you get to go to the one that people say is the best one. So, you know what, John? Fuck you. But I hope you really enjoy it, and I hope you tune back in at some point and give your review of how you felt about it. Sounds like you're enjoying it so far. What do I think the Nika fruit would have chosen if Luffy did die? My bet is on Buggy. The thing is, like, the Nika fruit's gotten passed around a lot, it sounds like, over the centuries. So it's not as though each person it goes to is like a surefire bet to be Joy Boy or Nika, right? So, you know, I wouldn't even be surprised if it did go to somebody like Ace if Luffy wasn't around or something, right? Because it's not like it's only gonna ever go to the perfect Joy Boy, because otherwise then Luffy would have been the only person to have ever eaten it in the last 800 years. So, yeah, maybe it would have gone to Ace or something like that. Like, Buggy is a hard pick, because unless something drastically changes in our understanding of Buggy in the next 200 chapters, which could easily happen, I think Buggy would be lacking, like, you know, he's not like a Conqueror's Haki user. He's ultimately quite a coward, right? I don't know if he's exactly like Joy Boy material in that sense, but I kind of get where you're coming from. I don't know. I don't know. Rob says also Sekiro is the best one. Sekiro's combat is the best one. Like, I've only played 3, granted, Dark Souls 3, Sekiro. My understanding is that Elden Ring and Bloodborne combat is very similar to, like, Dark Souls 3 combat. Sekiro's combat is so good. Sekiro's combat is amazing. I still value the overall... I think there's more to what really makes a game... This combat is arguably the most important part, I think. But Dark Souls 3 combat is also really good. It's not Sekiro, but, like, you know, the other Soulsborne games combat is also really good. And then I feel like Dark Souls 3 just... The world, the lore, the art direction, the visuals, the sense of fantasy, dark fantasy, etc. There's a lot, like, even the writing that you slowly put together and the RPG elements, etc., exploration, I think that there's more that kind of comes together that edges it out over Sekiro for me. But anybody that says Sekiro is the best, you 100% understand where they're coming from, because they were just, like, basically like, no, straight up, like, if we say gameplay is the single most important thing, Sekiro's got the best, arguably. Like, or most would agree, probably. It's just like, you can't go... I 100% understand anybody saying Sekiro is the best of the FromSoft games, because it's just like, look, the single most important thing, actually fighting bad guys and stuff, Sekiro's the best at it. It's like, yeah, I get it. Alright, anyway, moving on. Tala, thanks. Shanks equals God Valley's treasure equals Roxpa's Garling's sister. What? Dude, I literally don't understand. Shanks equals God Valley's treasure equals Rox. Oh, so you think Rox? I get it. Rox fucked Garling's sister. You think Shanks is God Valley's treasure? That'd be wild. Shanks is literally a treasure of Pirate Island. That'd be crazy. That's interesting. That's a cool idea. I never thought about it like that. I was just like, the treasure's gonna be something else, but Shanks himself being the treasure? That's interesting. Ahmed Elmi, thanks a lot. Do you think we will ever see emotionless Sanji? And is Oda trying to portray Jerma Sanji as the more competent version who looks as good as Luffy and Zoro? No, I don't think we'll see emotionless Sanji. I think that the version of Sanji where he switches his eyebrow and goes into the mode that he was when he was fighting Queen, that's what we're going to get. And I don't think that the Germa mode was more competent. I think like the moment that he can use his Germa powers along with still retaining his own sense of self, I think that's what ultimately matters the most. You know. Malik says, "Thanks for the 10. You can put this towards that PS5." Thank you very much. I appreciate that. But here's the problem. I already have like downloaded. I played games. I've started playing games on PC. I played all of these games on PC. I don't know if I would ever buy a PS5 just to play Bloodborne. I wouldn't buy even. I don't know if I'd even buy like just a PS4 just to play Bloodborne. Is the thing. Breezealicious, thanks for the 10. All right. Teeping Tom says Sekiro has barely any replay value. I feel that, but here's the thing. I think that that is largely because Sekiro lets you go back to play the bosses. Because I've gone back, not in a while, but like after I beat Sekiro, I think in the week after I beat Sekiro, like I went back and just fought the bosses again and again. It was just fun. Like I just went back and first I fought Ishin a bunch. And I was like, let me fight Genichiro again. Let me fight, you kind of go down the list. There's a few that are not fun to fight again, like obviously the folding screen monkeys and stuff. I even went back to do that just to kill time at one point. But yeah, that's the thing. I think Sekiro, we might have a different opinion of it maybe if in terms of replay value, if you couldn't already fight the bosses again. But I don't know. Yeah, you're probably right that it does not have as much. It doesn't have as much objectively, to most people. It does not have as much replay value, including myself. But the flip side is that in terms of like, if you want to just sit down, like your hands are kind of itching or something like that, you want to just sit down, like hit some stuff, basically like pick up and play. Like it was fun to just once in a while be like, nothing to like your hands. You just got an itch. You're like, oh, I'm just gonna go sit down. I'm gonna fight Ishin again, and it's a rush and it's so much fun. Like, that's what Sekiro's replay value is for me. So it's not the full game, but it's the feeling of combat and the feeling of fighting the bosses is really, really, really addictive in a way that I think none of the other FromSoft games quite got down. I still put Dark Souls 3 over it. My hot take is that Dark Souls 1, the first half of Dark Souls 1, is the best that FromSoft, at least that I've played, period. Just in terms of everything, like level design, atmosphere, everything. But the second half just brings it down. So I go Dark Souls 3, Sekiro, then Dark Souls 1. Me personally. Anyway. Get PS4, get Bloodborne, then play Bloodborne, then return it. I want to own it, though, is the thing. But I could do that. Because, like, what if I want to replay it? We're talking about replay value. I don't know. B-Rabbits is food for thought. If Mihawk really wanted Shanks to get serious in their duels, he should have hurt/killed one of Shanks' crew member, but then again, maybe Mihawk knew better not to fuck around and find out. I don't think Mihawk's gonna hurt one of Shanks' crew members, and I think Shanks would still try against Mihawk. Come on now. Let's get the stream likes up to 400 real quick. And ABD Sid, thanks for coming in with the 10, man. I appreciate you. Bonney's a clone, because look at how Saturn speaks to Kuma versus Bonney. She definitely got 0 Buccaneer DNA. That's true. Bonney has very little Buccaneer DNA. Or basically 0. That's why they're willing to keep her safe, even sending Akainu to bring her back. But what do you mean, why were they willing to keep her safe then? I appreciate the donation, by the way, man. Like, are they just keeping her safe so that they can hold on to Kuma? Who knows? Alright, let's start talking about the options, alright? Bonney is a clone of Ginny. That's option 1. But here's the thing. If we're trying to avoid Bonney being a child... Big Al says, yo, Morj, where's the Morj Unleashed content been at? The Morj Unleashed content had to pause for some period of time. It just did. I mean, it's probably paused indefinitely, right? That's not even like Manga Morj or anything like that. It's just paused indefinitely. Because as I was explaining, like, I think last stream or stream ago, it just became a lot for myself and the editors, etc., to have to keep up with, along with this channel and along with everything I do outside of this YouTube channel. Because ultimately, Morj Unleashed is more of a fun project than anything else, right? It's not something that's designed to ever grow really big or like be monetized in a crazy way or something like that. It was always like a fun thing, because I enjoy doing streams a lot, and like there's so many funny bits I feel like that come out organically over the course of streams, whether it's stuff that you guys are doing that I'm interacting with, or whatever topics are coming up, or like crazy shit like you guys voting on how you would fuck Speed or whatever. Like, there's so much funny stuff that's, I feel like, happens over the course of many different streams, that are fun to talk about, and things that people like going back to in general, like people that just want to hear a Law and Kid rant or something like that. Like, that's why Morj Unleashed was really created, to just be able to have a space that's fun for like people who really like the streams or who miss streams and want to see highlights to be able to go back to, right? It just stopped being fun over time, because just the added work of, like, you'd be surprised, like, planning out certain streams, like, you have to put more thought into things for streams, like, to make sure that there's a topic that, like, would be great for Morj Unleashed as well. Thumbnail time, reviewing the videos before they go up, lots of little things that come with it, and it's multiple times a week. And then obviously on the editor's end, they've all got lives, they don't do that full time, so it just got a lot, and it became too much to keep up with for basically what is ultimately a passion project for fun. And the flip side is, like, I also think that during that period of time for the channel, I kind of realized, like, the main channel, it wasn't in, like, it went through a bit of a lull, I think, because you slowly, like, it's small things add up that you stretch yourself thin, whereas in the rest of the year, once we kind of stopped doing Morj Unleashed, I think the quality of videos has definitely gone up. Yeah, and the channel, just, it's like small stuff that you notice good changes overall, basically. So yeah, ultimately lesson learned in terms of trying to do too much, basically. Black Lightning, thanks for the 5. What's your thoughts on the story? And ultimately, by the way, streams, like, they're all still on the main Morj channel, so, you know, you can still catch them. It's just the highlights, basically, is what we lost there. Black Lightning, thanks for the 5. What's your thoughts on the story as on the story continues? Shanks being a hockey man continues to be debunked. Is there something new that happened? Shanks being a hockey man? Oh, okay, you're saying versus him just being a swordsman versus a hockey man or whatever. Like, there's no such... Okay, I think two things can be true, which is that, like, swordsmanship and hockey are definitely one and the same. Like, you're using your... They're not going to turn off hockey when Zoro and Mihawk fight, right? That can definitely... that's... Swordsmanship and hockey are the same thing, right? They go together. I think that can be true, and then it can also be true that even now we still learn more and more ways that hockey can be used, right? So it's possible that there are things that Shanks does that don't involve a sword that he does with hockey, that we have not, like, abilities that we have not seen yet, right? We didn't know Future Sight was a thing for the longest time. We didn't understand how Advanced Conqueror's hockey worked. We didn't understand how Ashura worked. There's, like, we didn't understand, like something like Galaxy Impact. These are all new hockey abilities that are kind of being shown that are kind of stretching the scope of what we understood it to be, right? So I think two things can be true, which is that, like, everything we've seen of Shanks so far, it's definitely part of swordsmanship, right? It just is, right? Like, if you're taking out your sword and you're flexing hockey, if you're attacking Kid with a sword-based hockey attack, it's all swordsmanship, right? I think that's true, and I think it can also be true that there's more to hockey that we have yet to learn, so there's some wiggle room there in general. I think two things can be true. Where I'm at in the Shanks-Mihawk debate, because that's the question that it ultimately comes down to, is all I want to see is Shanks fight someone in a real fight, like not a one-shot or something like that. Like, let's see him have a real fight. If he uses his sword the entire time, and, like, he's using all, like, sword-based moves, like Divine Departure and stuff, Mihawk's just stronger than him, right? That's it. If he does something that, if he puts his sword down and does some other hockey move or something like that, then that doesn't necessarily mean Mihawk's stronger than him. That's all I want to see, basically. Like, I would just want to see how Shanks actually have a fight with somebody, and then we'll call it a day there. I really have no sort of strong feelings at this point, because it's just gone back and forth for so long as to whether I care whether Mihawk is stronger or Shanks is stronger, basically, at this point. Like, my opinion has shifted back and forth over time. So I'm at a point right now where it's just like, who cares? Because we'll find out in, like, probably an arc or something like that. You know, by the time Egghead wraps, we'll probably get to see Shanks fight someone. I don't know. And I think they probably scale to about each other, right? They're probably about close to the same thing, in my opinion. Mohamed Sadeghi says, then stop Mr. Morj to resume Morj Unleashed, my favorite. Morj Unleashed was the best Morj channel. That's true. See, Agusi Soup says Mihawk low diff Shanks. I don't believe that though. Is the thing. I don't think either of them low diff each other. Anime Kingdom MDM. Thanks for the 5. Another theory could be that Bonney is not related to Kuma and Ginny at all, and just be an orphan he took in, which could explain the Queen Connie thing. Okay, the Connie situation is weird. How does that explain the Queen Connie thing? I don't understand. How does that explain the Queen Connie thing? Bonney. Okay, so Bonnie's just an orphan he took in. But then what's the Ginny stuff? Like Ginny is clearly written to be similar to Bonney. She's a big eater as well. I don't think Bonnie's adopted. I'm not gonna put that in. Like or unrelated. Andrew Anami says OP fans ain't ready for the Haki Susanoo. I don't get why people joke about that, because that's literally what, like, Ashura is that. How is Ashura different? I mean, it's not creating like a giant armor around Zoro, but it is creating like literal Haki limbs that didn't previously exist before. Like it's creating a form or a mass that wasn't there before with Haki. I don't understand why that. Like, how is Susanoo? I'm not saying that Shanks is gonna have Susanoo or anything. I'm not, but I'm just always confused why people are like, "Oh, Haki Susanoo, that's a ridiculous thing." It's like, but Ashura is a thing. Like, why? Ashura is a thing. That's why is it? What, like, we already know that you can basically create new physical manifestations with Haki. Like, that is a thing. And people are like, "Oh, Haki beam cannon or Haki spirit gun is ridiculous," but it's like, but galaxy impact's a thing. Like, we're really not that far off from that type of thing. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's pretty damn. We're already circling that territory. Like, let me take a look at Galaxy Impact chapter again. What chapter was that? What chapter's Galaxy Impact? Probably like 1067? Maybe a little bit later. 1067. No, probably 1070 something. Yusuf says, "I'm telling you all, Haki Rasengan." But that's so reasonable. That's like, look at all the shit they already do with Haki. Why would it be weird that, oh, someone can turn Haki into a ball or something like that? Like, why is that suddenly absurd? That's pretty reasonable, I think, as a thought to have. I guess just calling it Rasengan makes it funny, but it's really not that crazy. Like, why is that weird to think that? I mean, look at this shit. Like, what even is this? It's basically the same as dropping a fucking spirit bomb, right? Like, this isn't that. It's not that weird. Flip says Haki Genjutsu soon. I mean, there's already weird shit. Like, you can see the future with Haki, and Shanks can cancel out other people's observation Haki. There's weird shit that you can do with Haki that's not really that we haven't, like, we're just kind of scratching the surface of. We still have no idea how Ashura works. Like, we still have no idea how you're able to stop the observation Haki of others and stuff. Like, there's clearly more levels. I mean, people will get upset about me pointing out that Kaido wasn't that impressive on the roof, because all Kaido ultimately did was slap around characters that it should have been very easy for him to slap around. I think the moment that Shanks took out Kid and Killer both at the same time in one hit, it immediately made me realize, okay, Kaido and Big Mom together failing to take out anybody on the, like, or struggling against people on the roof, or like Kaido spending several chapters to handle the Nine Scat, like, that stuff's not that when characters are so much weaker than you, I just don't view lasting that long against them as that impressive, because it's just like, but you could just beat them easily in theory. Like, you should be able to just smack them easily, right? If anything, it seems to suggest that Kaido's Haki is not as good as Shanks' Haki, to me. And then once I saw Garp do this shit, I'm just like, okay, so Kaido and Big Mom The real problem is we don't have a great understanding of hockey because Kaido and Big Mom are nowhere near the ceiling of what you can do with hockey. You know, like there's clearly levels to what can be done. I'm not saying old ass Garp is stronger than Kaido and Big Mom. Don't get me twisted or whatever. But clearly, in terms of what his peak output is, it's a totally different scale of hockey than anything. Like Luffy's not doing this. Kaido, Big Mom, etc. are not doing this. Even Shanks one-shotting Kid and Killer. There's just, it seems like there's levels to hockey that Oda has not shown us yet, basically. Which is why I think the two Yonko that went down first were deliberately not quite as good as the characters that we're going to get next. Strachako, thanks for being a member for 13 months. Celestial Dragon slaps Ginny's cheeks. Kuma steals baby Bonney. That is weird. But, okay, why is Kuma stealing the... Oh, wait, whatever. That sounds very rapey, and I don't think One Piece will ever go there. Anime Kingdom is saying, what if Ginny was the daughter of Connie? Oh, I see. What if Ginny was the daughter of Connie, and Bonney is Ginny's daughter, but not Kuma's biologically? What? Okay, Ginny is the daughter of Connie. So Ginny was the daughter of the Queen of Sorbet Kingdom. And then Bonney is Ginny's daughter, so she's Connie's granddaughter. Like, if she'd been impregnated while captured. Okay, I don't know. I don't get the Ginny... Okay, I kind of get it. So Ginny was a slave even though she was the daughter of a queen? K-Nerp says failing, struggling, they weren't trying on the rooftop or against the Scabbards. Okay, fine, they weren't trying. Like, you can't have it both ways. This is my problem with the Kaido, like, fan club. You can't have it both ways. You can't be like, oh my god, it's so impressive that they lasted so long, like, Kaido lasted so long against all these Scabbards, and then Kid, and Killer, and Law, and stuff. But then also be like, oh, but they weren't trying against them. Because it goes one of two ways, right? It's either like, okay, so they came up against a significant challenge, and Kaido managed to, like, hold out throughout that challenge, or it's like, Kaido's way stronger than any of these guys, and he could have one-shotted them whenever, right? And therefore, he's basically fighting fodder, so it's not that impressive to be basically holding out against them. You can't have it both ways, where it's like, either it's impressive that he was, like, up against an overwhelming force and held out, or you're saying that they were really all weak compared to him, and he could have been one-shotting them but chose not to. Because if that's the case, then what's the feat? Like, why is it impressive that he didn't one-shot them? Like, what are you saying here? Like, I don't get the argument. You're saying he could have one-shotted them, but he chose not to. Okay, so what's the feat? What's impressive? What's going on? Because all I can say is, like, if Shanks taking out Kid and Killer in one panel, that's impressive to me. If he can do that in one panel, that's really, really cool. Like, that's what you kind of expect from a Yonko. To me, that's a significant feat. What is the feat in saying Kaido and Big Mom could have beaten Luffy, Law, Kid, Killer, Zoro, but they chose not to? Like, how's that? I just don't get what the feat is there. What are you gassing up? Like, you're just saying that they could have hypothetically, but they didn't? That's not a feat. It's one way or the other. Either you're saying that they were pushed against overwhelming odds and managed to hold out, or you're saying that they were up against basically characters that were weak to them, and then they chose not to take them out. You get what I'm saying? John678, thanks. Oh, shoot. Missed that. John678, thanks for the 5. I think Bonney is Ginny, but it's a little weird how no one in the Marines, including Saturn, calls her that. Maybe they don't know her past. No, but they do. It does seem like they know her past. JWP, thanks for being the Pirate King tier member for 11 months. Shanks really does have the best feats in the entire series. Extended Future Sight, One-Shot Kid and Killer, Wi-Fi Hockey. Even just him pulling up to Marineford is a feat. Lol, lol, lol. Does Shanks have the best feats? Maybe. I think you could argue it. I mean, again, I'll just say, like, one-shotting Kid and Killer is objectively much more impressive than Kaido not one-shotting Kid and Killer. Because it just is, like... Like, you could say Kaido could have, hypothetically, but it's not really based on anything. But Shanks did do it, right? So he one-shotted characters that Kaido and Big Mom didn't really do anything against on the roof for an extended period of time, right? So that's more impressive than anything that Kaido and Big Mom did. Scaring away Green Bull is obviously huge. He's the only character to just have like made an admiral run away purely from hockey. I could see that. Yeah, I could see that. I think it's hard to say who has the most impressive feats overall. John678 says, also look at chapter 1095 when Bonney is talking to Saturn, the exclamation marks on him and saying, seems like he just figured something out. Chapter 1095. Let's see. The Slit Eye says, Kaido literally killed the MC 3 times. That's so much more impressive than killing Fodder Kid. That's such a weird way to phrase it. No, you just scale it off of how strong Luffy is. Wait, what? Because beating Luffy in Act 1 is not more impressive than beating Kid and Killer simultaneously in one shot post Wano, right? Like, that's like Kaido one-shotted Luffy there, but he couldn't one-shot Luffy again, right? Shanks one-shotted Kid and Killer at the same time, post Wano, right? Then Kaido did take out Luffy once Luffy had figured out Advanced Conqueror's Haki, and that was a big deal, right? He did that once. But that's also, like, that was a real fight, you know? That's not, like, how's that more impressive than just one-shotting Kid and Killer? You know what I'm saying? Like, they went at it for several chapters, Luffy got a hit in, etc., and then Kaido took out Luffy. Do you think that beating Luffy after he, in base form, after Luffy just figured out Advanced Conqueror's Haki is, like, that impressive? I don't. Like, I mean, like, there's so many characters that are way stronger than Luffy at that point in time. I'm not saying Kid was stronger than Luffy once Luffy figured out Advanced Conqueror's Haki. It's the one-shotting aspect of it. Because we already saw that Kaido scaled, like, it's already established that Kaido scales to Big Mom, right? That's established towards the end. Like, people just forget weird things about Kaido. We were shown that Kaido scales to Big Mom. Kaido and Big Mom basically about equal, right? We're shown that they fight for several days. That's Oda establishing that, right? Big Mom is unable to take out Kid easily over the course of a long fight with him. She can't one-shot him or anything like that, as far as we've seen. We see her using Elbaf Cannon on him, which, again, that scales to Thunder Bagua. They're shown to be about the same. So it's not like Big Mom wasn't trying or using strong moves. She can't do that, right? Kaido, similarly, never one-shotted Kid on the roof, right? Kid and Killer show up 100% fresh. That's established to Wano. Shanks one-shots them right away. That is just objectively, you can scale the characters straight up. That is objectively more impressive than anything Kaido did on the roof. Because Kaido, Big Mom, these characters cannot, as far as we've seen, one-shot characters like Kid, Killer, Law. They can't. Kaido did one-shot Luffy in Act 1 at Udon. Or sorry, before Udon. But Luffy was a lot weaker back then, right? This was pre-training and everything like that. And I think most would agree that Kid and Law scale above Luffy in Act 1. So I don't really know where people are pulling this idea that Shanks' moment is somehow less impressive, less impressive than Kaido eventually managing to beat Luffy, right? And then Kaido's final victory against Luffy, I don't even understand why people reference this. It's a victory that he only got because the world government called in outside interference. Why do people even talk about that one? That wasn't a real win. Even Kaido didn't view that as a real win. But readers somehow pulled that out as a real win? It's kind of bizarre. Anyway, let's talk about this. It's hilarious how people will bring up that win, but then anytime somebody brings up, well, Luffy then beat Kaido afterwards, people will be like, no, but that doesn't count because there's other factors. It's like, dude, the win that Kaido had right before that people count, like, oh, Kaido beat the MC 3 times. Beating the MC doesn't mean jack shit. All that matters is how strong the MC actually is. You Crocodile beat Luffy twice in Alabasta. Does that make him more impressive than Shanks? That doesn't make any sense. You just base it, like, Luffy's just a character like other characters. You scale based off how strong that character happens to be. What does beating the MC 3 times mean? Alright, what is this comment? What am I looking for? Last survivor of extinct Buccaneer people. Leorio Cole says Kaido's durability is more impressive than Shanks' power. I think that's where you get to an area of like discussion. But Kaido himself puts Haki above all, because we know Shanks' durability is probably not that high. I mean, he lost his arm to a fucking sea king. So it depends if you think Shanks' offense is above Kaido's defense, and I think that's a fair discussion. But it's just like, in terms of Haki, Shanks is clearly well above what Kaido can do. Achintia Mithra says Kaido fans believe it was a Kaido win even if Kaido didn't. LMFAO. Yeah, that's the thing. I think the Kaido propaganda is strong. Morj Anime says Big Mom didn't use Conqueror's coding against Kid. You can get into all sorts of like stuff if you like. I personally view it as Elbaf cannons are always Conqueror's Haki because they're portrayed similarly to Thunder Bagwas. As basically being like their biggest physical attack. And she did hit Kid with a Elbaf cannon. But I would agree there was never a confirmed moment where she hit Kid with advanced Conqueror's Haki. But at the same time, she was down there with Kid and Law, beating them up off screen for an extended period of time. Are we supposed to believe that she never used Advanced Conqueror's coding? What reason would she have had never to use Advanced Conqueror's coding? Like, if she could have one-shotted Kid and Law, I think you can't just make up the argument that Big Mom could have one-shotted Kid or one-shotted Law when we never see that happen, and there's nothing to really suggest that she could have. The reality is that when Shanks came out and one-shotted Kid and Killer, everybody was freaking out. They're like, holy shit, how can he, like, it just didn't make sense how he could do something like that because people thought that there would be a fight. Nobody thought it would be a one-shot, right? It just kind of blew up everything that we saw previously in the previous arc with Big Mom and Kaido and what they were capable of. So now, instead of kind of respecting Shanks, it's slowly revisionist historying and like doing some revisionist history and basically being like, you know what? Kaido, he could do exactly what Shanks just did. He just could. Why? What's it based on? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The closest Kaido did was basically one-shotting Luffy in Act 1, when Luffy clearly was nowhere near as strong as, or not as strong as Kid becomes down the line, right? That's the closest thing Kaido kind of did. But let's just say he could. And let's say that Big Mom could have one-shotted Kid the entire time and just didn't. Let's just say that. And let's ignore the fact that Big Mom and Kaido scale to each other and are shown to be basically equal. You have to ignore so many things to basically argue that Kaido is offensively, Haki-wise, as good as Shanks. But if people want to ignore, they can ignore. JWP says, forget also negating Future Sight or whatever he can do, LMAO. Yeah. Daniel Chukudum, thanks for the 5. Do you think Buccaneers have a special ability like the Three-Eyed Tribe or the Tontadas? No. I think their thing is just being strong. Okay, you killed my father, Saturn. Kuma, you mean? He was born in a slave caste, last survivor, etc. Bonney, leave her alone. She's still just a child. More child allegations. Okay, let's move up. I must have missed whatever I'm looking for. Why is it that human beings, blah, blah, blah. You killed my father, Saturn. Oh, you're saying like right here it seems like Saturn realizes something? I don't think realizing something. I don't know. Zarsama says they did ocean sovereignty to wipe them all out, but if it wasn't for Zoro, they probably would have been wiped out. Yes, and ocean sovereignty is a two-person combination attack. So, by that logic, I would agree that perhaps Kaido and Big Mom's attack combined would be stronger than Shanks' attack. Big Al, thanks for the 5. The name Ginny means maid or virgin, calling it now that no way Bonney is the biological child of Kuma and Ginny. Alright, so we kind of got to go back to the drawing board. Theo Garvey says, Morj thinks moving an island is not a feat. No, I think it's, you would count it as a feat, but whether that's different from, what do you call? Like, that's not the same as combat feats, you know? Like, you know, usually people base more on combat feats, but I kind of get what you're saying. Like, how do you scale Fujitora lifting up all that rubble, or like, you know, stuff like that. Like, how do you really scale it? I usually scale based on like what characters do to each other. Anime Dimension, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 12 months. Kaido and Big Mom used a combo attack on them. That move should be stronger than Shanks' Divine Departure, and Zoro stopping it is even more impressive. Yeah, I agree. I think that Zoro stopping that is like the most impressive thing anybody did on the rooftop till Luffy was doing 1v1 versus Kaido. Anime Kingdom MDM, thanks for the 5. I think I meant is Kuma might not be her biological father as she doesn't have Buccaneer DNA, or maybe Bonney was a child captured with Ginny who she saved. And you think just the naming seems so similar though. Isaiah 10, thanks for the 10. I get so tired of power scaling. Luffy beat Kaido and Kizaru because it was narratively important. Shanks is strong because he needs to be. People literally don't understand underdog stories. Shake my head. I don't understand. Power scaling is important. It is really important. It's like the whole point of progression system in a story. You need to see Luffy slowly traveling up the ladder to Pirate King. This only makes sense, and his journey only has stakes, and each new step only has meaning if we can understand how this new challenge is significant relative to the previous challenges. So power scaling matters a lot. So I'm tired of people who say to stop power scaling, because it's like, that's literally like saying stop trying to understand the progression of the story. Morio Anime, thanks a lot. Big Mom didn't use Conqueror's coding against Kid. We kind of covered this. Malik, thanks for the 5. Grimjaw beat the fuck out of Ichigo. Not that impressive compared to Aizen, Stark, and Yulkiera later on. Yeah, that's why I think, like, as soon as people are saying something like, oh, well, he beat the MC so many times, that's impressive, it's like, so you're not actually arguing, like, you're basically just arguing, you're just arguing to argue, or, like, you're arguing based on, like, kind of, like, how do I say this? Like, you're trying to, you're not arguing based on, like, trying to create like a logical framework or structure. You're more so just trying to argue based off of, I think, things that sort of incite emotion, if that makes sense. So it's like, beat the main character 3 times. That's a crazy strong character. It's like, what does that even mean, beating the main character 3 times? What the fuck does that even mean? It has no meaning. It has no implication in terms of like the framework that we're trying to build. Attilio says, Morj, who's stronger, Makima or Luffy? Luffy. 3D Table says power scaling is part of the logic of the story. Acting like you can just handwave it means you're just ignoring inconsistency. Exactly. It's a battle manga. It's just, it matters so much. My Negro Academia says, it's a battle manga. Power scaling is literally everything, LMAO. It's not literally everything. Let's not get too far. Other things matter, but it definitely matters. Like, we're not reading fucking, like, we're not reading, like, War and Peace or something like that. We're reading One Piece. Like, we're reading a story about fighting to become the Pirate King with superpowers and hockey and shit. Anime Kingdom MDM, thanks for the 5. If Bonney was a child that Ginny saved while captured, then maybe Ginny gave her a new name to fit her new life, and it would be like inheriting her will. I could see that. Dick so small I piss on my balls. Kizaru's playing possum so he can remain passive. Yeah, I could agree that maybe Kizaru's not. The thing with Kizaru, it's tricky. Maybe he I don't know, because I kind of disagree on the Kizaru point just because we literally get to hear his internal thoughts. I could imagine maybe at some point he's kind of playing possum. Like, maybe he could get up earlier than he implies, but at the same time, like, oh, this is the bad translation. What he actually says is, this isn't good, and it's his actual internal thoughts. Like, he's not trolling or anything like that. That's what he's actually thinking, right? So, whatever happened there is not something, like, he doesn't want to be getting knocked out right here, as far as I understand. That's the guy's name. His name is that. I can't, like, I gotta read out his name. It wasn't a slip. It's literally his name. You want to see his name? I tried changing the pronunciation to My Negro Academia, but his name is literally spelled that. It's not a slip. That's literally what the dude is named. If we want to cheat, we can just say I was saying the color black in Spanish. Fenris redacted, thanks for the 5. Buggy improves in Luffy, so he must be able to clash with Kaido. Just the way it is. Eyes96 is Bonney is Big Mom's daughter. No. Okay, I see. Big Mom got clapped by Kuma to fill her Tata land, but somehow lost Bonney, hence still missing a Buccaneer. That's funny. Alright, let's take a look at the options. Let's try and figure out what this is. Alright? So, as of right now, we do not see Um. Um. Right, we don't see any sort of hint in 1097 that I can think of that Bonney is already alive, right? There's no hint that I can think of that Bonnie's already alive. Am I crazy? Pulling it up. So the timeline here is basically okay, 14 years ago, a certain kingdom, right? What time was he first imprisoned here? Like, what time does this happen? Do we know how many years back this was? Okay, 22 years ago. This was 22 years ago. Bonnie's supposedly about 24, so she's obviously not born just yet. Castletown, the Kingdom of Sorbet, when Kuma's 25. Like, she should be born, but she's not, right? Unless, hold on. So 25 years ago, okay, time out. There's a conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory right here. All right? My conspiracy theory, a chance. No, I think somebody ranked Law's durability being really low. I think Law's durability's got to be pretty good because he took a lot of hits straight up from Big Mom. And he held out against Blackbeard a good while. It's possible Kid's durability is just bad. I don't think so though, because Kid took a lot of hits from Big Mom too, and like he literally couldn't fight back for a while because of Hawkins. I don't know. Anyway, so looking here, right? 25 years ago when Kuma was 22. So this is around the time. So Bonney was supposed to be estimated 24 years old, right? This is the only chance we've kind of got. Maybe not the only chance, but it's one of the few chances we've got for Bonney not being a kid. All right. So Kumachi, let's get married. Blah 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 blah. I can't. Sure. Blah blah blah. I don't want to make you unhappy. Look at this. Blah 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 blah. Okay. Then 22 years ago, something major happened. All right. So we kind of skipped. Right. We kind of skipped a bit of time here. Maybe. Maybe Oda's misleading us here. Maybe Ginny clearly is about it. Kuma kind of protests, but maybe something happened in between, and Kuma gave in, and maybe Oda's deliberately hiding that right now. Right? So maybe Kuma's already a father. You get what I'm saying? You guys get what I'm saying? Because the timing, like it's 25 years ago that Ginny's making this offer. Maybe Kuma went with it. And maybe this is something we'll learn in flashback form a little later, and Oda's just trying to hide Bonnie's Bonnie's birth. I don't know. See what I'm saying? This is hard cope, but we are trying to avoid Bonney being a child here, right? So it's a hard cope. So maybe Bonney exists at this point as a child. I don't know. I think that's. I believe it's technically a possibility. I don't think I wouldn't bet money on it at all. In fact, I wouldn't bet anything. Coming home every now and then. But it says he's won the heart of the lady we all admire. So it's more like that doesn't sound like they're a couple. Like it sounds like if they are a couple, then it'd be a very recent thing. You know? Doesn't sound like they're raising a child together. Lakers game was insane? Fuck. Just gotta check real quick. Don't worry, this won't derail stream at all. Oh my god. God damn it. I'm glad I didn't watch it. They fucking lost. Why would I want to watch this? Alright. Yeah, why keep it a secret, says Jolly D. Joestar. Okay. I've got no good reason. Got no good reason. Um, I got no good reason. All right, we'll leave we'll leave that theory alone for the moment. So, do any of these theories? Does anyone have a theory where she's not a kid? Who's got a theory where she's not a kid? Oh, no AD. Because the problems are we see Bonney as a kid with Kuma as her father. So we see that. Then we also see that it's 14 years ago and there's no Bonney to be seen. Anyone got a theory where she's not a kid? I mean Bonney is Ginny, but after her memories were erased and she regressed to a child due to her fruit. That's one, like, where she's technically not a kid, but she's got the mind. She would have the mind of a kid. This one also gives her the mind of a kid. Like, which is there a theory that like that prevents her from having the mind of a kid? Riss Zero says she might be like a Germa clone born as an adult. No, but the problem is that we've seen Bonney in her flashback as a child being held by Kuma. Bonney looks nothing like Kuma. She has no Buccaneer DNA as far as we know. Jay asks, why can't Bonney be adopted? She could, but it's like, at what point did she show up then in Kuma's backstory? Unless you think that she's a kid that they just ran into. Okay, she's a kid that they just ran into. That's a theory. She's a kid they adopted that they find 14 years ago. But she was already like... Maybe that's why Oda gives an age estimate, because they don't know her actual age. She was already like... 10 years old then? 10 years old at the time. That's a theory. There we go. Alright. Let's keep those type of theories coming. Malik says Kuma pushed himself back to an alternate timeline where he and Ginny got married. That doesn't even make sense. J Press P, thanks for the 2. How old do you think Bonney was when she was in Egghead? Shit, yeah, we haven't even gotten Kuma over to Egghead yet. Yeah, we're already pushing shit with Rebecca, but in Japan, the age of consent is like... Is it 16? Is that the... Like, there's some reason that in Japan, like, it's 16 or something like that for them instead of 18 or something. Mohamed Sadeghi says, I think legal age in Japan is 14. Not sure. For some reason, I thought it was like 16, because that was why Rebecca was 16. And you know the funniest thing with pudding? So, like, a Vivre card or something like that came out for pudding, and it was like how it revealed her age or something like that, or it revealed the number child that she was, and basically revealed that she was 14 years old, and everyone was freaking out. It was like, what the fuck? Sanji's a pedophile. How's pudding 14 years old? This is fucked up. Like, Sanji's... How old Sanji? Sanji's like 21, right? Sanji's 21. This is a 14-year-old girl. This is crazy. This is fucked up. And then they made a redaction, a change, right? They changed the Vivre card. They corrected it, right? They did a retraction. They changed it. They're like, okay, she's not 14. She's actually 16. And it's like, fuck, man, that's literally not better at all. That's like, I mean, it literally is the wrong word. It literally is better, but it's barely better. You know what I mean? It's like everyone's up in arms about her being 14 years old, and then the Oda or the editors or whoever's in charge of the Vivre cards is like, okay, hold up. I know everybody's pretty upset about this with like Sanji having a relationship with this 14-year-old, but what if I told you guys she was actually 16? Like, you had the chance to change it and you only changed it to 16? You couldn't at least squeeze a couple more years in there? I get different ages of consent in different countries, so like it's just different standards and stuff, but it's just I don't know. It's just funny to me that they had the chance to change it, so they could have made it whatever, right? But they landed on 16 being the reasonable option. It's like, why not just, if you're changing it, why not just make it 18, man? Or like, I don't know. We'll stop the legal age discussion right here. But um, do we got any other theories that keep Bonney above, I guess, 16? Because that's what we roll with in One Piece. Fatingo, thanks for the 5. What One Piece character do you think would be absolutely cracked in Fortnite? I don't play Fortnite. But if it was back in the building days, it would be Frankie, right? Back when Fortnite had building and stuff like that. As I understand, Fortnite removed building, which to me was like what Fortnite was all like. Wasn't that the whole concept of the game? But apparently they removed building, and people like that. So if we remove that, then it would probably be like Usopp or Van Auger or some shit. I mean, in terms of like playing video games, I don't know who'd be good at playing video games. That's impossible to tell. But if we pretend that some real life skills kind of translate to your intuitiveness for playing a video game, then maybe Usopp or Van Auger. Or Yasop or some shit. Same question, but for Melee. Melee is hard to tell. I feel like Melee is too hard to tell. I think Zoro would be the best at Melee. No. Yeah, I think Zoro, just because in Melee it helps if you got like a crazy strong work ethic to just like practice. Like I think that like that's really what separates players at the top. Like they just put a crazy amount of time just grinding. And that's kind of Zoro's thing. You know, I think that he trains more than any other character in the story. So he would just you really need to grind Melee a lot to be like a really top player. So I think Zoro would just have it in him because he's like, you know, just apply the world's strongest swordsman mentality to Melee and he'd probably just be grinding 24/7. Jolly D Joe Star, thanks for the 2. Kuma has his current eyes in Bonney flashback. So it's coming later and later. You're right. Breezy 2X, thanks for the 5. Since you brought up NBA, predict where Wembanyama will place all time at the end of his career. I'm so fucking excited for him, man. Oh, still building option? Oh, there you can build? I didn't know that. Oh, Ender Anami says Robin literally has extra hands. She's the Melee goat. You know what? I'm stupid. Melee goat would be someone with future sight. Like, I guess someone with really good future sight, like Shanks or something. Because even if you have extra hands, you can't beat future sight. Yeah, the best future sight would win. I'm not thinking about the variety of abilities that people really have. So I think future sight would get you the win in Melee. But Robin's a really good option. You need observation hockey for sure. I feel like Luffy would just be really bad at video games anyway. Nico says, the GOAT, Cody Schwab, reminds me of Robin, bro. I don't know. Call me crazy, but I think Cody's got the level that he's hit is the highest peak that Melee has ever seen, personally. Anyway, Wembanyama. He literally might be, you know that he might be the GOAT? Like, it's fucking insane to me that 5 games into his career, right, after the 38-point game, it's legitimately a fair conversation. Like, I don't think people would look at you crazy. Like, the takes that I started seeing, and I didn't view any of them as crazy. Like, a lot of people think he'll be an all-star in his first year. A lot of people think he could be like a top 10 player by the end of this year. That's fucking crazy to think about a rookie. But it's also not just because you see it's just a totally different game. It's literally like players have to, when he's on defense, players have to literally just run away from him. I've never seen that with a defender. Like, they're literally, it's like he's a hazard, like a level hazard in a video game that's been dropped in, where like you can't, just the game is fundamentally changed. You can't go into certain areas of the basketball court, you know? Like, you had that kind of with like Anthony Davis and stuff like that, but it's nowhere near the same thing. He's like literally just like a field hazard, like a stage hazard or something like that. Like, it's just something different dropped into the game. And then technically what he can do, it's the first like, people always say Kevin Durant's unstoppable, etc., but he technically really is unstoppable because just nobody is even close to contesting a shot. So it's not crazy to say that he just could be, like, if he plays to his potential, he basically should be the GOAT, is the crazy thing. You know? If he plays to his potential, not should be, should is a strong word, but if he plays to the potential, there's no reason to think that he might not be the GOAT. And you know how I know that it's just unlike anything we've seen before is that Skip Bayless, right, who up till now has forever just been furious and upset and like fought back super hard at the prospect of anyone suggesting someone could pass up Michael Jordan. Like after the 38-point game, I did tune in just to see like what ridiculous stuff he'd have to argue against Wembanyama, but he's sitting there saying like, yeah, could see him just being better than, like, I could see that he just ends the GOAT debate and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, if even like the most hardcore Jordan and LeBron fans are forced to just be like, it's all, you know what? It's like the part of the reason is that like he's just such, he's like an alien, different dimension guy or whatever. He's so different from the small forward, shooting guard, even power forward sphere of play. He's just, it just feels like an unfair being that showed up, right? It's almost like, yeah, if he's better than Jordan, I mean, fucking look at him. He could be better than Jordan. Just look at that guy. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's just a totally different category of person. Like, how do you even compare other players to him? It just feels like he doesn't even count. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, well, we're not comparing Jordan to that guy. That guy's a fucking whatever. All that being said, I'm not saying that Wembanyama is going to be the GOAT, right? It's very likely, like, sure, like, Michael Jordan's Michael Jordan, LeBron's LeBron. Wembanyama, it's a very high ceiling to reach. It's entirely possible he gets nowhere close to those guys, right? But if I had to call it right now, I'm like, yeah, I think that you could put down some money on people saying Wembanyama's the best player of all time by the time his career's done. And maybe you got, like, I don't know, like a 30% or higher shot of being right even. It's crazy. But 6 months down the line, maybe teams have really adjusted. Maybe he hasn't really been able to improve or elevate his game. Maybe he's just this level forever, basically an all-star level player, and that's entirely possible as well. You never know, but he's lived up to expectations and maybe exceeded them. Remix King, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 9 months. Morj, how do you feel about the monthly release controversy for Pokemon Adventures? Oh, that is a problem, man. How do you feel about Chapter 3? Chapter 3, there's only 3 chapters? Why are you such a big fan of this series if there's only 3 chapters? How do I feel about Chapter 3? I loved it, though. Even though it's controversial that it only comes out once a month, so there's only been 3 chapters. But yeah, I've really enjoyed Chapter 3. When the Pikachu evolved into a Raichu. It's my favorite moment. I'm kind of upset that Ash's Pikachu never evolved into a Raichu, because I think Raichus look badass. Raichu's a cool Pokemon. Anyway, favorite game of the NBA season so far? Probably the first game probably the first game that the Spurs played the Suns. Very competitive, crazy ending. Really enjoyed that. Skip is a Spurs fan? No. Yusuf says Skip's a Spurs fan, but he was shit-talking Wembanyama early on. He did not like Wembanyama early on. He was already trying to downplay him, saying certain things like, I doubt this guy just does, like, he was pointing out lots of stuff, but, like, 5 games in, there was just nothing that he could say, like, literally nothing he could say anymore. So he's kind of just like, yeah, I guess maybe. He's not even like right now he's neutral from what I've seen. Like, he kind of got shifted from being really negative to just being like, okay, I guess I'll fucking wait and see. Malik, thanks for the 5. Bonney is Ginny, but she reset her own age as part of the deal Kuma made the Gorosei. That's why Kainu was shook when she left. Maybe. I'm looking for a theory that doesn't make Bonney a kid. But let's throw that in. Bonney reset her age as part of a deal. All right. So Ginny. John678, thanks for the 10. Morj, you pose an interesting quandary. If compelled to make a choice, would it be preferable for Bonney to possess the physical attributes or the cognitive abilities of a child? Please answer. Thanks. If it's one of those things where she's Well, because if she's mentally an adult, right? If she's mentally an adult, then she's got the age fruit. So her switching her body around to like it's basically the same thing as what we already thought Bonney is, which is like she's mentally like we already thought that Bonnie's just an adult woman who sometimes chooses to look like an old woman, sometimes chooses to look like a child, sometimes chooses to look like herself, right? So if Bonnie's mentally an adult, it's just what we already thought Bonney was, and no one had a problem with that. It's if Bonney is some sort of mentally regressed version of Ginny, or a literal child, or something like that. That's when it becomes weird. However, I'll throw in another possibility. If Bonnie's a clone, and maybe clones just age faster, like mentally age faster. You know what I mean? Like the Seraphim were created like very recently, but it's not like they're mentally like 5 weeks old, right? They're not like mentally babies. They've clearly got the brains of children or something like that, right? So maybe Bonney, maybe Bonnie's like, maybe Bonney is physically like, maybe she was a clone that was created and she grew to the age of like, clones aging, mental aging just happens at a faster rate. Maybe that's totally possible, and you see that in a million like sci-fi movies and stuff like that. That's normal. Fenris Redactus's Bonnie is actually secretly an adult. K Maya says, with Pop as his coach, I'm not sold on Pop being a great coach for Wembanyama. Just because Pop was a great coach historically doesn't mean that, like, he's a million years old now. The Spurs haven't been good in a long time. I don't know how much of it is like him being a legacy good coach or whatever. It doesn't mean that he's gonna be a great coach for Wembanyama right now. I concede that he's probably the best coach of all time, but by all means, Pop should be retired at this point. He himself has talked about how like the game has changed so much, and he doesn't like what the way the game is now. And it's just possible that like a lot of the philosophy that he had for players like Tim Duncan, etc., don't apply to Wembanyama. So it's banking a lot on assuming that his philosophies and his methods apply to the best way to use this guy, which I don't think is necessarily the case. And a common complaint that a lot of people have had, I've only gotten to watch a couple of Wembanyama games, but this is a common complaint that I know people have had and vocalized a lot, which is that they don't seem to go to him, like the Spurs don't seem to go to him enough as much as they should, considering how effective he is, especially at points in the fourth quarter or down the stretch. They don't seem to rely on him as much. And I don't know if that's a Pop thing or not really trusting him just yet or what, but I don't know. No, I'm not trying to disrespect Greg Popovich. I fully believe that like he is the best coach of all time. Fully believe that. Full disclosure, the Spurs, like I started watching basketball a little after the Spurs were like their whole dynasty, legacy, etc. kind of went down. Although I still create like really respect because I even 2016, 2017, the Spurs were really, really good. And I mean, I saw the Spurs nearly take a game off the KD Warriors in 2017 until Kawhi got injured and stuff. So I know he's like the best coach, but I'm saying like just because you're the best coach historically doesn't necessarily mean that you would be the best coach right now. Like, you know what I mean? For a new player that's a totally different style of player that we've ever seen in the game, for a new era of basketball that we're in, like the game has drastically changed over the last 5 years. I don't know if that, like, I'm not taking it as a granted that Greg Popovich is going to be the best coach for Victor Wembanyama, but he's obviously a better coach than, you know, like just being thrown to a random coach or something. You know what I mean? And we're gonna wrap stream in 10 minutes, by the way. Su Long Bet posts his theory: Bonney is not a kid. Kuma left Bonney for the same reason Dragon left Luffy. Association with anti-government terrorist group probably isn't great for a child. But why was... Okay, I see what you're saying. So Bonney was born... You're saying that Bonney was born earlier in the backstory and just not shown yet. I think that is possible. Right? That's the theory. I don't think there's any mind-blowing stuff here. Senor B says nice shelves. Thank you. Just wait till next stream where hopefully there'll be more stuff on them. Casey says Morj should just make another channel for his basketball love. I literally do not watch, like, real basketball channels watch every fucking day. I do not have the time to watch basketball every day. I'm lucky if I get to watch, like, if I get a night where I can watch a game or two, basically. So, I watch when I can. This is the season where I probably started off watching the most that I can remember in recent times. I always watch the playoffs, obviously, like all of the playoffs, but yeah, mostly I'm watching some games a week. Real basketball channels, like, to be knowledgeable, you gotta watch everything. Like, any opinion that I give for basketball is a casual's opinion, for sure. Kazuma Desu, thanks for the 2. No World War III until I know what One Piece is. You say that, but, you know, there's people in certain areas, like, who will never get to... I mean, obviously, they miss out on a million other things that are more important, but... I remember there was a post that someone put out a while back. They were in a country that was under, you know, under attack. They basically knew that they're not going to get to see the end of One Piece. They put out a post thanking lots of people. Like, I don't know. It went pretty viral on Twitter, One Piece Twitter, and a lot of, I guess, content creators or big Twitter accounts were sharing it, talking about it. But it is sad. I mean, obviously, it's everything that's happening is sad for a million reasons, but, like, small things do matter a lot. Like, for a lot of people, they're, like, one of the things that they look forward to the most in life is, like, finding out the ending of One Piece. So it's obviously quite, like, it's a small thing to lose, but relatively speaking, for some people, that's a crazy big thing to lose, to be in a certain country or situation where you can't find out the ending to your favorite story, which is maybe the most important thing to you for the future, just from your perspective. Like, for some people, that is the case. And honestly, I feel like for a lot of viewers of this channel, that probably is the case. Like, everyone here is a big One Piece fan to varying degrees. And for some people, that's just the most important thing that they, like, if I ask some people, like, if you could have a wish, a lot of people would say, oh, I want to know the ending of One Piece. So, you know. Let's move past that subject. Anime Dimension, thanks for the 20. Part 1, Bonnie's. Oh, yeah, let me reiterate. Thank you for the 20. Seriously. Part 1. Bonney said she came to Egghead Island as a kid, and the only way she can meet Vegapunk is through Kuma. Kuma never met Vegapunk before meeting Dragon. You're right. That basically does disprove that. Yeah, you're right. Kuma never met Vegapunk before meeting Dragon. As far as we know, yeah. I mean, it's unlikely. And Vegapunk was working as head researcher at Punk Hazard until 4 years ago. Shit. Was Vegapunk at Punk Hazard till 4 years ago? There's no way. I thought that happened a while back. Can someone confirm? And I'm sorry, it looks like you submitted twice the same thing, man. I assume that you got a part 2. So, oh, you sent the part 2 separately. I'm sorry, I was just gonna try and find your part 2 and, like if you just chatted it normally. But I appreciate the extra. Thank you. Part 2, so she would be less than 14 years after disappearance. After Ginny disappearance, so I believe Kuma life for a few years is similar to his father as slave in Morishua. Okay. Hold on, let me process this. So she should be less than 14 years after disappearance, after Ginny disappearance, less than 14 years after Ginny's disappearance. So I believe Kuma's life for a few years is similar to his father as slave in Morishua. I don't know about that part, but the Punk Hazard part of the timeline is a key part, because we can track Vegapunk. Like, when did they first go to Egghead Island? Bonney was a kid then, which means that Vegapunk would have had to been working at Egghead Island by that point, which really backtracks the time range where Ginny could have been a kid. Or sorry, where Bonney or whatever could have been a kid. Mahavitsadegi, thanks for the 5. Bonney is Connie. Begori's wife awakened the fruit, permanently became a kid to avoid world government. Permanently became a kid to avoid the world government, lost memory, got adopted, and raised. That's a really interesting theory. I like anything that can combine There's no space now, so I can't add that, unfortunately. I think it's a little wild, a little out of the box, but I like any theory that can involve that can explain the Connie aspect of it as well, because the Connie aspect is just interesting. Part 3 from Anime Dimension. Part 3. Vegapunk offered Gorosei to use Kuma as a test subject for Pacifista Project. I see. So that's why now it makes more sense what you're saying. Kuma was freed, so Ginny may be alive as a prisoner. I like this train of thought. It ties a lot of pieces together. However, can I ask, why then was Bonney so vital to the world government? If Kuma was already being turned into a pacifista. Myriad, welcome to Pirate King tier. Please check out the recent Pirate King podcast. It came out last Friday. It's a good one. And you obviously get access to all previous Pirate King tier podcasts. And every weekly Yonko podcast, which comes out every Friday, so look out for that. Appreciate it. Okay. The Connie one is interesting. Anything that can explain Connie is a good one, because it's just a interesting missing piece. Mist says, Morj, did you hear about the Ravages of Time? It's the pinnacle of media. Def would be at least a top 2 series for you. The Ravages of Time. Let me pull that up. I like the name. Is this a... What is this? Hong Kong comic series. I've never heard of that. The art looks cool. Oh, it's about the Three Kingdoms? I know that's a famous period. Alright, I'll keep this one up. You say it's a top 2. What's the other one in the 2? Top 2 work of fiction. It's pinnacle of media. Okay, you're saying it would be the least top 2 series for you. So you're saying along with One Piece, I assume. Breezy 2x, thanks for the 2. Conquer hockey user with the weakest will / ambition. That's an interesting question. Who are all the Conqueror's hockey users in One Piece? Off the top. I mean, there's just ones that we haven't really seen that high of a... We don't know enough about, maybe. Like, I don't know what Boa Hancock... Like, there's a level... Okay, I think the varying degrees of Conqueror's hockey users that we've kind of seen are those that just have... you can have Conqueror's hockey in the sense that you are simply... Like, you're just a very, very strong-willed, commanding individual, right? That that doesn't really bow down to others, that lives life your own way, etc. And these are characters like Boa Hancock, Katakuri, things like that, right? And then I think that there's maybe another level, arguably, where it's like, even beyond that, your drive pushes you to certain heights and to keep chasing those heights, if that makes sense. And that's where you get characters like the Yonko, right? Like a Kaido, like a Big Mom, like a Shanks, probably like a Mihawk, right? Like like Luffy, obviously, the drive to keep going up, like to pursue a great goal or keep going up, right? I don't think like Hancock and Katakuri are quite there. Like Katakuri has a crazy strong will. Hancock, we haven't seen as strong displays of will, but we can probably assume that she's got a really strong. But like, there's less direction to them, you know. Whereas other characters, we see a greater drive upwards, if that makes sense. I think like Hancock is very happy to be in the place she's at as just the Empress of Amazon Lily. She's got strong Conqueror's hockey to be in that position. But I don't think it's like the same thing as like, Kaido or Big Mom or something, like pushing to be Pirate King, like stand above all else, So in that regard, who would have the weakest? But that's not even that doesn't mean they have a weak will. It's just facets of Conqueror's hockey. Like some are just like, I need to be above literally everybody else, But then, I mean, even then you got Shanks and Whitebeard, and I don't think that they cared about being above everybody else. It's just that their will was so strong that they just were. So I'm probably conflating what the real meaning of like strong will in Conqueror's hockey is. Okay, versus like how much that matters with ambition. You could argue that Whitebeard had a really strong ambition to become like so strong that he could protect his family or something like that. I don't know, it's tricky. Weakest is hard. Weak is just hard. I can't pick. Yeah, maybe just fucking Chinjao. Maybe just Chinjao. Chinjao is maybe the default. Maybe it's just Chinjao. All right. I think we're gonna end stream right about now. Uh, did we make any progress? Out of everything that we see, let's do a quick recap. Bonney's a clone of Ginny. That's straightforward, right? We're basically getting lots of iterations of Bonney. Like, I think what we've landed on is that it's unlikely that Bonney is the kid of Kuma and Ginny. But I mean, that still exists as a possibility. But most people don't. Most people lean towards Bonney being either a clone of Ginny or Ginny herself. Clone being maybe a clone that aged up rapidly or something like that. That would be really nice and convenient. Maybe a clone that had her memories wiped or something like that. Maybe it's Ginny, age regressed, memories wiped. Maybe Ginny just went all the way back to being a baby and then grew up. Maybe she's a kid that they adopted or something, so maybe she's outside of the Kuma family tree, but I don't think that's... I don't know about that. Maybe it's just something really complicated with the deal that the world government did. There's a lot of possibilities, but I don't know if there's anything really concrete that I can see. Ayush Gupta says, where's Occam's razor if Bonney is a child of Ginny? Father, dragon by love or celestial... Okay, so you're saying not Kuma, but either dragon by love or celestial dragon by force. I'm going to leave celestial dragon by force out of there because I think that's just too dark for One Piece. I don't, like, obviously One Piece goes into really dark stuff as is, like, who's to say, like, slavery and genocide. Why is that too dark? Or like, why is that not as dark as, like, rape? But I think that ultimately there's just, it's a subject that I don't think the type of, just what that is, it's just, like, more of a, I think it's just a bit too real, to imagine that being in One Piece, I think. So I think it just wouldn't be in a shonen comic. So we're gonna leave that out. Dragon by love, I don't think it's dragon by love. Yeah, Apollina Top Hat says the Saint Berserk. Yeah, I don't think it's that. I don't think, like, you think Dragon had multiple romance? I mean, sure, he could have had multiple romances, but you think, like, Ginny, Dragon, they had Bonney. That would make Bonney Luffy's half sister, unless Luffy is also Ginny's son, but I don't think so. All right. Or what if Luffy is Ginny's kid too? Because you know what's funny is just the similarity that Luffy and Bonney happen to have, which is, Bonney is, they're both the big eaters, right? One of Luffy's most notable trait is always eating. One of Bonnie's is always eating. She's known as the big eater. That'd be funny. Dragon and Ginny had 2 kids. I don't know. That's too much. But it's just a funny little connection there. All right, guys. Yeah, we didn't really land on anything, but we did explore many possibilities, trying to avoid Bonney being a kid. Some seem at least possible, so we'll hold on to those. And yeah. All right, guys. Good stuff. Thanks for tuning in as usual, and I will talk to you all, yeah, this Thursday. Video coming out tomorrow, obviously, and it's Bakuma.